Okay, welcome to season 32 Hunter tier list. We're gonna be having 6 tiers for this season. Excuse me. It's gonna be a bit more. It's gonna be a bit more clear this time, I guess. We're gonna have Ivy's Madness as number 1, and then Versatile as number 2. Seems like a lot of people get a little bit confused with the different meanings of niche. We are going to go with Versatile this time. Next will be Warp Viable. Warp Viable is mainly just, oh, Warp made this character better instead of a tie guarantee character. And then next we're going to have tie guarantee. And of course, right after that is niche. This niche means that you only specialize at this character. Meaning you probably play this guy 1,000 times. 500 to 1,000 times. 1,000 might be a stretch, but 500 times bare minimum. And then unreliable just means no matter how good you play, it's always based on how the survivors play and not how you play. But this will be season 32's Hunter tier list. There is like 7 days before the season reset. Therefore, we will be moving on as soon as we can. Now, Ember will receive a buff next season, but Ember for this season is considered quite unreliable. Even with Ember's recent buff of, being able to, what was his, oh yeah, even with Ember's recent buff of being able to actually target a survivor with the Phantoms, to be honest with you, that's what the Phantom should have been doing ever since the start. But even so, I do generally believe that the reason why Ember is pretty unreliable is because of his item. It's because of how slow he actually gets his embers. Right, he starts with 50% ember early, and then he needs to chase after a survivor for a good amount of time to be able to get more ember stacks. And by the time he actually reaches his first ember, it's around like 30-40 seconds in towards the game. Because you do need to spend 10 seconds looking for a survivor too, which would be a small bit of an issue if you can't find a survivor that you want to chase. Also with Ember, he is considered a very slow moving pace hunter, meaning that he doesn't have that much versatility at trying to move around the map early game. Yes, mid to late game his map control gets better, but early game it is pretty bad, which is why a lot of people prefer to bring Insolence with him to open Presence 1 to get his puppet to travel as fast as he can. But even so, with only one puppet, right, you're able to throw it out and then move along throughout the map to catch up towards the survivor. But here comes the issue of now you have to retrieve the puppet. You just moved far away from the puppet. You can definitely teleport back, but by the time you teleport back, that just means you're changing target. So like with that in mind, your puppets are pretty unreliable in that sense as well, based on how you use it. For your puppet, you either need to use it in a tight containment area to block off one of the survivor's routes, or even put an ember on the doll. But even so, it's kind of more just like there's a huge trade-off, and it's not really worth it at the end of the day. We have also seen in IVT NAEU 2024 summer of Ember coming out. Yes, the Ember player was definitely good. Yes, we definitely have seen proficiency, but once again, okay, even with the walls blocking off the puppets, as we can know as well, like since walls can block off puppet throws, what can we do in that scenario? If it doesn't go through, you have to go up and pick it up. So like there comes that too. Now some people might say, oh, but if you throw the puppet out, you can at least teleport midair and then drop downwards to hit a survivor. But that's kind of where we say, look, that's not gonna happen unless you're in Hound. Like that scenario will never happen unless you're in Hound. If you open Presence 2 with the red puppet, yes, it could be possible because you can hit during teleport animation time. But aside from that, no, not really. Ember does have below average map control / chase early game, but as mid to late game goes onwards, yes, of course he will have more. With Insolence, it does help him out quite a lot now after the new Insolence update. But once again, Insolence takes way too long to get to max presence, and most of the time survivors will always be able to, contain you for bare minimum until blink is open. And by the time you even get them down, I would probably say is the fact that you probably don't even have, embers on you to actually chair camp. So then like for his chair camp, it's also situational as well, depending on how the first chase went. right? But of course, when next season moves on, he definitely should be able to move up towards the tier list. But for this season, he is still pretty unreliable. His share count in a nutshell is good, but that's only if he does have resources, meaning that he got 2 really easy hits early game without using any of his items. A lot of Hellenberg mains run Hunt on Hellenberg, which yes, it is not bad when you don't have any presence and when you tap the Red Ember when you summon the Red Ember, it's not considered as using a skill, right? But once again, only early game is it really suitable. And in current day meta, you use so many characters that pull distance from you, so many characters that can just pallet spam and then continue for free. So like it's kind of a meh situation for Hellenberg for season 32, but from season 33 onwards we will have to see. But that's that for Hellenberg. Next will be our friend Clown. For our friend Clown, we will put him on niche. Niche, once again, meaning the fact that you specialize in this hunter to actually make him good. At least having to play 500 to 500 games bare minimum. Why is Smiley Face niche? Well, with a couple of reasons, of course. So what does Smiley Face have? Smiley Face has pretty good map control early to mid game. If he does not have any of his unlimited rocket dashes to use, or you miss too many of them, then of course your map control will go down significantly, and that is also another reason why he is niche. For a Smiley Face, they have added, like, I'm quite sure 13 locations to where you can get rocket dashes, and I will say this right, 13 is still quite a lot. That's definitely not saying it's not a lot. It is a lot, right, for the survivors main that are watching. But once again, a lot of Smiley Faces are really prone to crashing. A lot of Smiley Faces are really prone to, you know, getting hit by flywheel. A lot of Smiley Faces, due to the fact that there is fast pallet drop down, most of the time if they want to go to the pallet, the rocket dash will target the pallet first, unless the survivor drops it really slow. So from the survivor's point of view right now, they have quite a lot of items to actually counter the Smiley Face rocket dash. And it's not also that, it's also the fact that if you are near a long pallet or window and you are only early game in, you don't have that fast rocket, it's going to be really hard to actually get anything on towards a survivor, especially when survivors know how to constantly fast vault, right? So like there's kind of where the small inconsistency is coming from. Now, aside from that, his chase is definitely still good, yes, but if survivors allocated themselves to a really good containment area with long pallets or window, most of the time Smiley Faces are kind of forced to walk early game until they find a survivor and then pull out the rocket, in which sometimes you may say, hey, that's not that much of a bad trade offer. But once again, this is a Smiley Face. What does Smiley Face has? Very good map control. But if you allow the survivors to even decode for free for a little bit, you might not have enough for the tie or for the win, especially if they come in and harass, especially if they have like flywheel almost ready up to go. Just because of the fact that you need to walk the survivor, that means that's 20 seconds bot for flywheel cooldown reduction, right? So that's kind of where we're coming from with the chase. This chase initially early game goes from above average to below average depending on how many rocket dash you have used, and it's not like you can always go up and pick up items. Sometimes survivor will just contain in the same area as the previous survivor, and then there's basically no items remaining in that same area, right? So then you kind of like saying, okay, I have max presence long rocket dashes, but I don't have unlimited rocket dashes, and if there's still long pallets or windows nearby, that might be a small issue for me as a Smiley Face. But aside from all the map control and traversing across the map, he also does have chair cam too. His chair cam, honestly speaking, isn't bad. His chair cam can also almost always guarantee a double down scenario when he uses his rocket dash to hit the survivor and to dash towards the survivor. It's considered an immediate attack recovery animation, and you can hit the survivor again. Now, with that in mind, it doesn't really counter rescuers, because with rescuers, like, you know, mercenary, elbow pad away, first officer uses a pocket watch to get away, and then like GrameKeeper who can go into borrow mode and then get up. Those type of counter, like for rescuers, you don't really get countered by the Smiley Face, but for everyone else, kind of yes. It just depends on the character too. Maybe not pushback characters like Prospector, or you know, like, well, it just depends on if the survivor decides to use their items or not to get away from you right after rescue. I think that's the most important part of it all. So, but like, there's still a chance for Smiley Face to get a Terror Shock, but he has only one chance to get a Terror Shock. He has only one chance to get a Terror Shock. And I would say still, like, you know, if you allow the survivors to stall more time on chair, that's just more time decoded. But of course, it's in exchange for, decoding progress. It's in exchange for a Terror Shock, field rescue, or even a chair stuff. But yeah, for Smiley Face, it's just so on. So now, Smiley Face doesn't have any cipher control. I don't think we need to say that. He mainly specializes in map control, or just traversing across the map and finding new targets. That's what he is good at. But because of the Bell persona now on the survivor side, if you change targets, hunters will be highlighted for 5 seconds. So like, there's also a mini counter there for Smiley Face too. Now then we have a GrameKeeper. GrameKeeper will be considered versatile in multiple different situations and for multiple different reasons. For a GrameKeeper, he has hooks, and with these hooks, he's able to cast them twice early game, and then as multiple times as you want when you reach max presence, which I'm quite sure is called Fury Hook. For GrameKeeper, he did recently get a nerf. So I'm gonna put him on very low versatile. I will put him on very low versatile, but he is still good. GrameKeeper can catch up towards the survivors pretty fast. He can definitely traverse across the map really fast as well once he reaches the max presence. But that does not mean you should be bringing Insolence, and let me explain to you why. Once you open first presence, you will open this thing called the Torn Chain Hook, in which when you hook the survivor, they will get a chip damage, and then of course you can just hit them. So then, like, you know, if you can chip damage with the hook, then you can open max presence even faster right after the first presence. So there's really no need for Insolence. Now, aside from that, GrameKeeper, he has received a few nerfs before. I didn't make a tier list last season, so we'll talk about it this season. His nerfs were the fact that when he uses his Fury hooks and he crashes in towards an obstacle, the suffocation range in which the survivor gets slowed down has been decreased by 20%, meaning that it is harder to cancel survivors from using their items right after you hook towards an obstacle. For example, this is especially good against Antiquarian, Batter, Aeroplanist, just anyone in general who needs to utilize their items to get away from you. Okay, and what was the second nerf? The second nerf is the fact that you need to wait 60 seconds, if I'm not wrong, to be able to get your traps. And what does this mean? This means that there are less chance of GrameKeeper being able to utilize his traps to actually lock off multiple containment areas. Meaning, if you only get 2 traps early game, that means you need to wait for at least 1 minute before the next trap, meaning the fact that you just have less map control overall and cipher control when it comes to like locking survivors away from certain areas. Okay, now we know. But then, like, for GrameKeeper, he is still considered pretty versatile because of his movement across the map, because he can hook survivors who's far away from him towards him, or he can just hook his way towards the survivors. For GrameKeeper as well, he definitely does have a little bit of chair cam too. You definitely can get Terror Shock on the survivor when they are interacting with chair with your hook, but it is still pretty hard to do. Now, it's not only viable for chair, it's also viable for, you know, for pallets and for windows. Just anything interactable overall. Is like trams, roller coasters, well, maybe not tram, but like roller coasters and cipher machines as well. So like for GrameKeeper, he does have his hooks to be able to traverse across the map pretty easily. He does have, you know, traps to be able to lock cipher machines and containment areas pretty easily too. Okay, my bad, it's 50-second duration, he says 60. Sorry, it's 50 seconds for the trap, not 60, my bad. I gave an extra 10 seconds, but you know what I mean. So, you also have traps that can lock the cipher machine. You can traverse around the map really fast. You can change targets as you wish once you open max presence. You can start damage controlling. He's really good in small maps. Yes, you probably will get countered by tight kiting, but once again at the end of the day, you win some, you lose some, you don't get everything. And of course, what a lot of GameKeeper does as well is that they actually hold their Hulk right in between the pallet and then pretend that they're gonna go through the pallet, and then Survivor's pallet's done, and then you hook the Survivor behind the pallet towards you, and then you hit them. There's also that strategy too that a lot of GameKeepers do. But honestly, for a GameKeeper, very, very versatile type of hunter. He has high chase, right, in which it goes from below, well, it goes from average to above average. He has map control in, well, he has map / cipher control in a sense in which he can lock off some containment or good pallet areas. And he does have a little bit of chair camp too when it comes to terror shock hooking. Now, it is very hard, so we'll say that's most likely below average, but it is still doable. It is still very, very, very doable. But of course, GameKeeper will be a part of versatile still. So next is Ripper. Lol, I'll put Ripper on niche. Look, I can't kite Ripper, but I don't think he's unreliable. I think he's pretty niche if you know how to play him as well. But okay, for Ripper is a part of niche. Why? Reason being, I think one of the few reasons is also being the fact that of his buff wasn't that much, but I do still think he's niche, right? Okay, so what is Ripper? Ripper has Foggy Blade early game, and what does this Foggy Blade do? This Foggy Blade basically allows him to perform his basic attack and then throw a fog out towards the survivor, and if it hits the survivor, it causes them to damage them to half health. Okay, why is this good? It's because of the fact that this Foggy Blade also has the trait of being able to move. If Ripper moves in it, he moves fast. He gains movement speed. So then it means that he can actually catch up towards the survivor. So by technicality, Ripper has a chip ability, half health chip, and a speed boost ability because of the Foggy Blade. If the Foggy Blade lands on towards the survivors, the fog trails will follow the survivors, or in a nutshell, the fog trails will be left behind by the survivors in order to let Ripper catch up. Overall, what I would say for Ripper is, right, it's hard to land his Foggy Blade, especially when survivors know what they're doing, especially when Flywheel counters it, especially when they start pallet spamming and then you can't do anything about it because you need to break the pallet to actually catch up to them. That's definitely really annoying. Yes, but if you do manage to land one Foggy Blade and then land another hit, you're going to be able to get a survivors on chair. But here's a second issue. The second issue is what happens with Rebound Kite, right? Okay, Ripper's chair camp is good. Ripper's chair camp, definitely speaking, is good. It's not bad at all because you get a Foggy Blade and you can try get a double hit on towards the rescuer or the survivor coming to rescue to force a stuffed rescue. But once again, that is still very hard. Why? Because as long as the survivors stay close to you, right, and then you perform a basic attack, you will go into attack recovery animation anyways. You will go into attack recovery animation anyway, so like, it's pretty decently easy to actually counter the Ripper's Blade. And if you make some distance between yourself and the survivor, most of the time survivors are going to be able to know where you're going to throw your Foggy Blade based on the direction of your charged on your attack animation. So honestly, it's actually not that hard for survivors to dodge it. Now, once again, of course, if you're me, you won't be able to dodge it and you'll start throwing the whole game and your whole survivor will blame on you, which, you know, fair, very, very, very fair. I don't disagree with them. I would be angry too. But like for Ripper, his Foggy Blade is kind of unreliable in my opinion, but if you're good at it, then you definitely can land it all the time, which is why he is a part of niche. For Ripper, his chase goes from below average to above average as with the more presence he opens. And of course, with Ripper, his chair camp, let's just say it's 50-50. Either you land the blade or you don't land the blade, but most of the time you don't land the blade anyway, so like, is it really 50-50 is our main question now. But overall, I would say Ripper is still a very nice and fun character to play if you have the pay to win skin. If you don't have the pay to win skin, which is the Angel of Death skin, then the Angel of Death skins allows you to hit your Foggy Blades easier just because of the smoother animation, and you can kind of like adjust yourself to change positions. I probably should buy that skin once it comes back. Please, Angel of Death Season 2, come back. But yeah, Yeah, overall, yeah, it is a pretty... he is not a bad hunter, I would say. He is pretty niche as long as you do know how to play him, as long as you can land those Foggy Blades, definitely really good. But once again, still suffers from Cypher Rush. He has no Cypher control. His map control is basically just him moving across the map by feet. But yes, he does gain movement speed boost, but once again, by feet. So, like, yeah, there's kind of where that is coming from too. Now, but Ripper does kind of harass it too, in a sense, because when he knocks the survivor down or when he chairs the survivor, there is a fog patch left on the ground near the survivor in which the Ripper can take and go into invisibility form as soon as possible, just to gain that movement speed boost and to catch up towards the survivor and hit them and stop them from harassing you, because holy cow, that's annoying. Right? But yeah, overall for Ripper, still a really, well, a good niche hunter. I wouldn't say really good, just a good niche hunter overall. Next we will have Soul Weaver. Soul Weaver will be a part of tie guaranteed still. I haven't really seen any Soul Weavers using Warp. Now, I have tried Soul Weaver using Warp, and here is my honest opinion about it. Soul Weaver using Warp is kind of just the same as saying I use Warp to catch up towards you, and then I use my webs to catch up towards you even more to guarantee the hit, and then I'll have to use webs once again anyways to catch up towards you, so there's that. So like, for me, in a sense, I feel like yes, Warp is doable. Warp is doable sometimes, but not most of the times. Right? Because like with Violinist's trait of being able to shop around looking for survivors, by the time she actually finds someone who she wants to chase, she can immediately she probably has like 120 stacks of webs. She can immediately do a triple web, get the hit, and then another triple web, and blink down, which is, you know, which is basically 60-70 cash bare minimum. So like, between Warp and Blink, I think Soul Weaver is still better for Blink. Warp is very situational if you're against maybe Patient, if you're against maybe Aeroplanist, if you're against maybe Acrobat. But even if Soul Weaver doesn't have Warp, she can counter them pretty easily by catch up towards them and force them to use the item, and then utilize his webs to actually catch up towards the survivor ASAP and land the hit on them, and then maybe blink them down. So like, I don't think Warp is really that necessary for Soul Weaver, but she could be pretty versatile on both. But I would probably use Blink 80% or 90% of the time compared to Warp on her. Now for Soul Weaver, she did recently receive a buff in which her movement speed boost from utilizing webs has been increased from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, meaning that she's going to be able to recharge or to refresh or to stack up her movement speed boost whenever she wants to, which is a really, well, not whenever she wants to, but like she will have more leeway or more time to stack up her movement speed boost if she wants to. But because of this, I believe for Soul Weaver, her chase as the game goes on is going to be a very consistent average to above average. That's what I simply believe. Soul Weaver's chase is around average to above average, and it will remain that way. For us players overall, right, when you play Soul Weaver, you also have a first presence spit, in which this spit does a chip damage and slows down the survivors, which is really good. And of course, when you open max presence, the chip basically refreshes, the spit refreshes. So a lot of times what the hunters do is that they gain a 4.5 presence. They do 4 hits and 1 spit, and in this case scenario, all you need is 1 more spit to reach the max presence and a refresher cooldown. And what does Soul Weaver do then? They'll go for a double spit, either failed rescue or stuffed double down rescue. That's what they usually do. So then, like in the case of Soul Weavers, you do have chair camp, but you only have it once and once only. So like, that's like a below average chair camp in that sense. Now for Soul Weaver, she doesn't really suffer from Cypher Rush. Why? Because Soul Weaver, if she gets a fast out on towards the survivors, and if the survivors decides to sell, what you could do in this situation is to leave the chair and go look for another survivor. But when you go look for another survivor, the chances of them containing for LAN is going to be pretty low unless you're against antiquarian. Why am I saying this? It's because of the fact that if the survivor decides to sell the survivors that was on the chair, then Soul Weaver can basically accumulate as much web stacks as possible. So then by the time the survivor probably gets eliminated, Soul Weaver will have 120% web stacks out of 200. And by the time she finds the next survivor, she'll most likely have 150 stacks. So then, like, what does this mean? She can use like 10 webs and 2 spits. most likely to get the survivor down ASAP. So like in that case scenario, Soul Weaver can still definitely guarantee the tie, even if they do decide to sell, and even if the survivor do have a lot of items. As long I believe it's not anti-Korean, you should overall be fine. You should overall be fine. Now for Soul Weaver, she's also tie guaranteed because if she had a really bad early game, there's still a chance for a double down on towards the survivor because of her spit potential. Now it is low, but it is still there, let us say. But overall for Soul Weaver, it really is just, you know, hey, she's still a decent character. She did get a little bit of a buff, but it didn't really, you know, it didn't really change that much from her. And I guess when you open max presence, her spinning ability becomes stronger, and the speeding up spinning and reducing its cost. So basically what it means is that you gain stacks faster when you reach max presence, and it reduces its cost whenever you use it. So I guess that's a pretty good thing. Maybe her end game chase is above average consistently because of the fact that it's being reduced. But I do think because of the slow movement debuff in certain areas, if the survivor decides to loop in the same area multiple times, then it's not a good idea for them, because like they'll just get slowed down by taking the webs, and Soul Weaver will just get you down without even using any items. So like for Soul Weaver overall, it's still a very good tie guarantee character. Next we'll have Geisha. Geisha is going to be a part of... Oh, okay, that's not right. Okay, that's not Geisha. That's a hard character. But Geisha is going to be a part of Versatile. And for Geisha, she's a part of Versatile. I would say more or less she's a really good character to use. She is using Tourney too. She does have very high chase, but I guess her hitbox might be an issue for some people. The Geisha main I know says that her hitbox is good. I'll take their word for it, honestly, because they know the attack hitbox of Geisha, so they most likely always land their hitbox, but they most likely always have green pin too, so they know more than I do. Well, I would say they definitely do, right? Because they do main Geisha and then Espage Geisha. You also have seen Kot as well playing Geisha. Kot is a Geisha main. Go check him out if you want to learn Geisha. I most likely am watching a lot of his Geisha videos too, just to learn some placements. But you know, for Geisha, I'd say she is pretty versatile as a character. For Geisha, she has she has above average. Well, she has a little bit above average chase to very high above average chase when the game goes on. She will have one Dance in the Misery, in which that is what the butterfly is called. This allows you to throw the butterfly out and then dash towards the butterfly to make to catch up towards the survivors, or to put a butterfly on the survivors, and you can dash towards survivors in that sense. But in exchange, the survivors can look back and cancel your dashes. So that's a small bit of an issue on that side note. For Geisha, what else does she have? Apparently Geisha can wall clip. I have seen Geisha wall clipping before. I have done it before, but only green pin viable, so I don't know what to say about that. But overall, Geisha can still wall clip as well to get a hit on towards the survivors. Now, the small disadvantage of Geisha is she has normal form and piranha form and embarrassed form, in which I don't know what that is called. We will just double check what it's called. It is called panic form. So she has beauty form, piranha form, and panic form. Beauty form allows her to gain movement speed boost of 4.73 meters per second, if I am not wrong. I am just going to fact check this real quick. Yes, so for beauty form, she gains 4.73 meters per second of movement speed, so that's the fastest movement a hunter can get. But if she is in piranha form, she gets 4.56 meters per second movement speed. The average hunter is 4.64 meters, but if you get 4.56 meters, that is pretty slow, and it changes when you use your attack animation. So and when you dash, right? So what does this mean? This means that you gotta be very careful of how you use your butterflies and how you use your basic attacks and how you dash around the map, because sometimes it might be actually good for you just to walk across the map to find a survivor before you actually throw anything out and dash towards them, because that 4.56% movement speed debuff, movement speed boost, is probably the reason why you're missing your attack hits, because it's so slow. Holy cow, it's slower than Gala. Gala at least still moves at 4.64 meters per second, but she moves at 4.56 meters per second instead, which in a sense it is annoying, but I guess in exchange for her, you know, fast movement speed in beauty form, I guess piranha form does have to take the downfall of that. Now, her panic form basically doesn't allow her to use her dashes, and her panic form enables when the survivor looks at her directly in the face. So like for some survivors, they can do this even without the butterfly on them. For example, Thief. For example, Acrobat, for example, Prospector, for example, Batter, just anyone who can look back by holding their items. Cowboy as well, honestly, right? So then, like, for Geisha, overall, she's still a pretty versatile character. She has very high map control. She doesn't have too much time for control. Yes, a little bit unfortunate, but the map control and the high chase is really, really, really good. And of course, because of the fact that Geisha can dash in between palettes, it's sometimes considered used as a mini blink for some Geisha players. Even if the survivor does have a butterfly on them, you can throw another butterfly towards the same direction, dash towards that butterfly instead, and get a hit on towards the survivor. Overall, for Geisha's attack animation, it is pretty fast, so like most of the times you will be able to get hit right over the pallet. But because of hitbox issues and because of slow movement speed when she's in piranha form, it's a bit of a oofus doofus moment for some of us, you know, hunter mains when playing Geisha, so theirs is dash 2. Overall for Geisha, I would say she is still very good because of the amount of versatility she has of crossing across the map, and with the fact that in current day meta it is mainly about movement, high movement based transition survivor characters, and Geisha isn't honestly a bad counter for dash 2. So in a sense, Geisha is kind of like GrameKeeper but with more dash versatility or leeway. Or I just don't know English and I'm dumb, lol. So that's the map control for Geisha. She doesn't have any cipher control. I think we can agree with that. Now Geisha does have a little bit of chair camp, in which when she uses Soul Departure to go up towards the sky and she drops down and hits, it's a no attack recovery animation because it's considered a drop down hit. What a lot of Geisha does is that they actually put a butterfly right beneath them so they can dash towards a butterfly, and when they dash towards a butterfly they do a mini drop down in which they can then do a basic attack hit animation during that time, and even if you hit the chair, it's an immediate attack recovery reset, so like you can hit the survivor again. So like there's a double hit scenario there for Geisha's chair camp skill. Still, now is it hard to do? Yes, definitely, which is why her chair camp still is maybe below average, but at least it is there for you to use. But overall for Geisha, still a very, very, very good versatile character. Once you open max presence, you will be able to dash a lot faster and the survivors wouldn't be able to react as fast to you, is what I would like to say. You're most likely going to be able to wall clip, you're most likely going to be able to look through the side and dash towards survivors and catch them off guard to catch up towards them and hit them. There's a lot of things what a Geisha can do, but there is some downsides to it too if you don't have the right pin, if you don't know the right hitbox for her. Then we will have Wu. Wu will be a part of niche here as well. Wu isn't that much of a bad character. He is really good because of his double forms. He has black form and white form. Well, he's black guard and white guard, I guess. Not really form, it's called guard, but they're kind of the same thing. So what does each do? White form basically gives you movement speed boost, allowing you to catch up towards the survivor. White form gives you 4.73 meters per second movement speed, and you're going to be able to catch up towards the survivor really fast. Of course, alongside with the fact that white guard also has a very high attack range, and white guard also has soul siphoning, which allows you to catch up towards the survivor and cancel when it's 70% progress. White guard overall is really, really, really good for chasing characters that pull distance. And then you have Blackguard. What is Blackguard really good at? Blackguard is basically really good at anything that is harass type. So Blackguard gets stunned for less of a duration. I think Blackguard mainly gets stunned. Blackguard gets stunned less than Whiteguard. Blackguard also breaks the pallet faster than Whiteguard. Blackguard also vaults the window faster than Whiteguard. Blackguard also is able to use his bell to not stun the survivor, but interrupt the survivor and get them on the ground for 1 second, and then cancel them from using their items or flywheel. This is basically really good against harass, or really good against if they want to use their items. So what does this mean? Whiteguard is mainly used if you are an idle type of character who is trying to look for survivors to chase or to catch up towards them ASAP. Blackguard is used for tight containment survivors who are trying to kite you and not trying to rotate away and trying to stun you, or even against harass type. So like for Whiteguard and Blackguard, they have their own benefits in each. But also at the same time, that's not it. Wu also has a huge map control in which he's able to teleport half the map's distance with his umbrella. If it's full distance, he might be even stronger, but I'm quite sure that he's limited him to half the distance because I feel like global teleportation might be a little bit too strong for Wu, who is very versatile in where he can put down his umbrella. overall for Wu-chan, he is really a part of niche because of his map control, right? Once you get a survivor, then you can start map controlling as much as you want, forcing the survivors off their items, hitting them, and then forcing them to change target, which is what I really like about Wu in a sense. Now, of course, with the bell being able to cancel survivors from using their items, with the soul siphon being able to cancel soul siphon is also able to cancel survivors from using their items if they get 100 stack. Like the multiple woos appearing on the survivors when it's max soul siphon, that doesn't matter, because like survivors can distinguish it with the red light. But like I would say for Woo, both Black and White Guard can cancel them from using their item, one for a longer period of time in exchange for a longer period of duration of utilizing the item on them, and the other one is immediate if you're very close towards them and you want to stop them from moving towards the nearest pallet or window, dropping down a pallet or something, then that is fine. For Wu-chan as well, what I would probably like to say is when you utilize your teleportation, you gain this type of buff in which your interaction speed will be increased by 25% for 5 seconds. So what does this mean? If you teleport towards a survivor and then they drop down a pallet, and then within the next 5 seconds you get the break at 25% faster. That is like a free 1.5 like destructiveness on Woo, and I do believe that is great, and especially if you're in Black Archie when you break the pallet fast anyways, that's brilliant. And interaction speed doesn't only mean pallet breaking, it also means vaulting over windows and attacking survivors. 25% attack recovery speed when you hit a survivor is basically maxed out triple stack berserker. That is brilliant. Let me remind you, that is still a brilliant thing to have. But overall for Wu, what I will also like to say is he does kind of have Cherkam too. If you're able to get Soul Siphon on towards the survivor, they can rescue. If you're going to be able to land the bell on towards the survivor, what is the bell called? The bell is called Wavering Soul. So if you're going to be able to get Wavering Soul on towards the survivor, you could cancel the rescue animation for a little bit, and they can't rescue because they need to do calibration. In some senses like that, if they rescue too late, then you can possibly get a terror shock because of how fast Wu's attack animation is when it's Blackguard, or double hit scenario. Or double hit scenario because of the fast attack animation on Blackguard as well. But overall for Wu is still a part of niche. Next we will have Joseph. Joseph will be a part of Unreliable. Joseph really isn't that good for multiple reasons. Right. And like I do think it's also with the fact that like JoJo's photos, you could say he does have Cypher control, but he doesn't have map control and he doesn't have chase, which is a small bit of an issue there too. So he only has Cypher machine control, and that's kind of what I don't like about JoJo. For JoJo, he's kind of really luck reliable too. Once you get a survivor down on the ground in photo world, you need to be able to find a survivor within the next 15 seconds because other survivors are going to be able to heal the survivor that's on ground within the next 15 seconds. So you've only 15 seconds to pick up survivor from the ground. You've only 15 seconds. That's not a lot of time to find them. That is not a lot of time to find them, which is why I feel like, okay, maybe it's not that much of a good thing to play Joseph. I play him sometimes because I do like him as a character, and I do think the unpredictiveness is very, very, very fun. But aside from that, I wouldn't really recommend anyone using him in rank. Unless it's low tier, yes, you'll be fine. But if it's in high tier, it's kind of a huge mech situation for you, because all the survivors know, okay, it's a JoJo. Let's group up, finish a Cypher machine together, and then heal. And then like, if it's a relatively big mapping, which most maps are really big, and like if JoJo has some type of movement speed kind of buff, or even movement speed trait, then I will move him up, but he doesn't. He needs to walk to find a survivor. That's so annoying. That is really, really, really annoying for JoJo. Sometimes yes, you're gonna be really lucky to find a survivor that's on the ground. But like, that's so rare. That's honestly speaking so rare, and that's unless you're a really good JoJo main who is top of the list. But even if you're a good JoJo main on the top of the list, I still feel like it's so counterable in a sense. Jojo does have a little bit of chair camp. It's not really chair camp considered for Jojo. It's more like he has a double hit scenario when survivor comes rescue on chair if he does have max berserk as well. But overall for Jojo, he also does have this thing which he can. What's that skill called again? The skill is called time jump, in which he can move back to the last place where he was standing at 15 seconds ago, and it will face him towards the survivor that was nearest to him. In a sense, you can say, yes, you can utilize this to find a survivor that you downed on the ground, but it's nearest survivor, so if a rescuer is standing in the middle trying to disarray you, you are screwed. You are so screwed, and there's nothing I can do to help you, and there's nothing you can do to help yourself, and there's nothing we can do collectively as a team of hunters right now. So, like, overall for Jojo, I would say, like, I do think it's also with the fact that as the game goes on, his cipher control gets really bad. Cause like each time he uses his photo, the cipher machine loss progress will be reduced if you decode in the photo world as well. And like for each time a photo is taken by Jojo, and if the cipher machine is the same, let's say at 50% and remains 50% untouched, the cipher machine won't go back. And I do think that is one of the issues with Joseph, right? Because of the fact that the cipher machine does not go back, that simply just means that, like, even if the survivors aren't decoding that one cipher machine, they don't get penalized for it during photo world. So I feel like if NetEase wants to make Joseph a little bit better, they do need to have some type of amends in which if the cipher machine is at 50% and still is remaining at 50% right after, you know, right after the camera world has ended, the photo world has ended, I do feel like the cipher machine should regress by maybe 10-20%, depending on how long the game goes. Because, you know, like, of course, abnormal reduces as the game goes on and as the number of time you use it. But for JoJo's photo world, it's only good early game, mid to late game, you are so screwed. And that is my personal opinion of Joseph. Overall, very good. Overall, a decent enough cipher control early game, but it just gets shocking mid to late game. Really gets shocking mid to late game. So yeah, that's that for Jojo. Now, who do we have next? Next we have Mad Eyes. Mad Eyes will be a part of Unreliable, and it's not because of the, well, there's a good few reasons for it. So back then, everyone saw Mad Eyes coming out from Aka, saw Mad Eyes coming out from who is it? Dream Sensei from Taiwan, and they've been getting 4Ks, right? But and well, I'm not gonna go on with the but, yeah, but like I have also gotten a lot of crap for this about, oh no, Mad Eyes is also supposed to be higher, it should be meta. No, not really, especially after how we saw rank 1 CN Mad Eyes. Taiwan Mad Eyes got literally destroyed by regardless of what team you went against. Right, now you may say, hey, but the guy only has Mad Eyes, therefore they know how to counter him. In a sense you could say yes, but I think that alone is more than enough to tell us, oh, Mad Eyes really isn't that good. Because like if all teams know what you're gonna play, and then like for example Opera, all teams know what you're gonna play Opera or Ivy, and they counter you, or they give a team comp to counter you with those, but then like the hunters still get a tie or win anyways. That's meta. Mad Eyes, no. Mad Eyes, no. And like for Mad Eyes, it's actually pretty easy to counter if we take Southeast Asia's team. What were they called again? Sorry, my brain farted. Their previous, it was ZT and then a new name. I forgot their new name, but they won IVA. I'm so sorry. But like that team right contains Taiwan's Mad Eyes with just a teeth. And it's not like the Mad Eyes was bad, the Mad Eyes is definitely very good, but realistically speaking, what Mad Eyes only has is map control. Map control means that you need to utilize your consoles to actually get a chip on towards the survivors. Are the survivors in maybe mid to higher tier going to be dumb enough or slow reaction enough to either not get rid of your consoles first and then decode, or to not react on time and dodge your fences? Realistically speaking, none of those will happen. Realistically speaking, they would most indefinitely get rid of your consoles and then go decode, or they would, you know, just decode over, or they would just be able to react fast enough to dodge it. So there is that. I do know that a lot of my days, I mean, how they play right now is they walk and then they use their consoles. But then, like, even with that in mind, you need to be able to get presence 1 first, which is why a lot of Madai's mains bring the Insolence trait. Now, yes, you might be able to get 1 or 2 chips as the game goes on, but playing Madai's is kind of like playing against JoJo. If you have one survivor getting rid of all the console throughout the game and another survivor just containing or decoding, Madai's can't really do much in a situation like that. Playing against Madai's, yes, you do need a lot. You do need some form of communication. You do need someone to designate yourself to go and, you know, get rid of defenses for your survivors to contain, definitely. But also in rank, there are so many uncertainties of Madai's. Not only Madai's is very hard to play, he's also very inconsistent. Sometimes you might be able to land those fences, sometimes you might not be able to land those fences. I still feel like at the end of the day, those fences depend on how the survivors move. If the survivors makes a dumb move and then getting towards your fences, good for you. But most of the time they wouldn't, which is why I strongly disagree Madai's would be anywhere on top. Not only is he very hard to master, he is also very hard to play. He's also very hard to bring out, as there is still so many things that counters him. Madai's is basically like a just a walking hunter without any items. Yes, he does have his fences, but the moment that you utilize his fences, the survivor most likely will be able to utilize their items to pull far away from you, or take a pallet or window speed boost and get away from you as soon as possible. And like, not only that, if the survivors are in open air, like most survivors will just run into open areas the moment you get on towards that console. They know themselves, okay, they're on the console, they can literally hear Madai's tapping on the phone, on the console, and basically it's kind of like, okay, I just need to move to an open area. So then, like, even if Madai's wants to trap me, I'm gonna make it very hard for him to trap me, because like it's an open area, you have so many room to move. And if Madai's overexerts or overuses his fences, then he wouldn't have enough to actually lock you in. Most Madai's may try to do the triangle formation, but for me, I believe that if you really want to get the triangle formation done correctly, especially with Madai's cooldown on the fences per each summon, it's going to be very hard for you to still do that with very, very little fences to use. Right? So like for Madai's, he's basically no chase at all early to mid to late game. He does have extremely good map control, and he does have very, very, very good cipher control. But I feel like at the end of the day, if you're not going to be able to, you know, chair camp for the rescuer to come in, chair camp the rescuer, get a double down, there's a huge chance for the survivor to be able to rebound Kaiju even if you do have energy consoles. And especially with the fact that if a survivor still has items on their hands, it is definitely not impossible. Now with that in mind too, playing against the Madai's is like playing against a Clerk. Once you get the lock on a cipher machine, you rotate to another cipher and decode that one. It's overall okay for you to do that against Madai's. Why? It's because Madai's is considered a very... Madai's, it's very hard for him to actually get someone on chair. It is very, very, very hard for him to get someone on chair. If you want to say, hey, but if someone spawns middle and they use my consoles to lock the 4 entrances of church, 4 entrances of, you know, shack, XYZ, XYZ. Listen, back then maybe yes you can do it, but nowadays survivors know all of these stuff. It's not like survivors are dumb, so they know how to counter the Madai's. Right, so there is also that too. Madai's endgame is a little bit hard to play, especially with the fact that there is only one console near the exit gate, so as long as the survivor just throws a really huge lawn fence down, you basically can't console lock the gates anymore unless you do it early. But also alongside with that, when it comes to chair camp, the fences doesn't stay up for long. Like, yes, Madai's chair camp is amazing. Definitely, we definitely can't disagree with that. But also at the same time, it just gets countered if you immediately rescue or if you make a small bit of a mistake with the chair camp. The whole game might just go AWOL. It just might go like out of the ordinary, and the game is basically not on your side by then. So like for Madai's, it's really unreliable. A lot of people will still give me crap for it. I have read all of your opinions and comments, But once again, I don't think it justifies anything. You like, I mean, I understand being good at any hunter means that you can make the almost always make the meta, but there will always be a limit. Unless Maidice always lands his offenses, but I also think that's very hard, especially with so much time and reaction survivors has. But yes, that's that for Maidice. We will be able to move on towards Feaster, and for me right now, Feaster is also more of a niche character. If you like playing him, you can definitely make him good, but I do think the main issue when playing against Feaster is the fact that it's quite easy to actually dodge the tentacles. Now, when you're in my stream and you watch me play against a Feaster and I don't dodge the tentacles, it's because I'm not a survivor main, so don't please learn off me. But most of the time, survivors do know how to dodge the tentacle, especially with the fact that when you see the animation coming out, you can basically just sidestep a little bit and dodge the tentacle. Now, the tentacle hitbox is actually, like, the tentacle hitbox is long but thin. That's kind of where tentacle hitbox is coming from. It's long but it's thin, so like as long as you sidestep properly, you overall should be fine. What a lot of survivors do is that they get near towards the tentacle and then they start disarming the tentacle and then leaving the tentacle. In that case scenario, right, basically Feaster can't use the tentacle for 1 second. Apparently there's this kind of cooldown for that, which I don't know why, but apparently there is. And like with that, it just allows the survivor to get in between a paddle or a window without looping around the tentacle. But also when it comes to the tentacle can, yes, definitely locate towards the next nearby or the nearest survivor that is near you when you place it down. But the tentacle only starts regenerating or stacking when you are near a survivor as well. So that's kind of weird. That's kind of a little bit similar to Ember's Ember in a sense, but Ember's getting buffed, so we can't make this comparison for season 33 anymore. Aside from that, when it comes to Feaster, yes, his early game chase might be bad and will be bad regardless. The consistency bad is bad, but his chair comp will always still be good. Yes, rescuers are going to be able to tank a tentacle hit and then immediately get the rescue. You won't get this stuff, but you will always get the double down. I do think that's where like single hit hunters chair cam, like stuffed chair cam come from. I can't really say it's chip hunter because chip is like a quarter of a damage. I don't know what I'll say for single hit hunter, maybe double chip, lol, really funny. But aside from that, his cipher machine control is actually okay, it's average, because the moment you get someone down, there's tentacles that spawns near towards the survivors, and then they're near the cipher machines. They have to get rid of the tentacle in order for them to decode at a faster rate. If they don't, they decode at a 15% slower rate, if I am not wrong. So like for the survivors, it's necessary to actually get rid of the tentacles. So like, okay, so no chase, a little bit of cipher control. Map control is basically none as well, cause, well, maybe a little bit, a bit of a big, some map control because of the tentacle spawns, I guess. But his chair comp is overall really good. I would say it's above average because you can get the double down, but I feel like survivors are going to be able to dodge your tentacles pretty easily. Right, and it's also with the fact that tentacles disappear faster when they are near chair, if I am not wrong. I think once you spawn the tentacle out, it remains idle for 10 seconds before it disappears. Now, of course, when Feaster opens max presence, he will get a second eye in which you can basically use tentacle twice in a row and get the stealth rescue, which is why I will say his chair count goes from above average to extreme. To genuinely extreme. When you get that second chair on towards a survivor and you have max presence, there is no way they will come to rescue. But once again, what is Feaster suffering from? Cipher rush. Because he has no chase, there is nothing he can do if a survivor decides to sell the one that was on chair. But overall, I would say Feaster would be pretty niche. Then we have Dreamwitch. Dreamwitch will be a part of Ivy's madness. I think she will remain up there for now, with a couple of good reasons too, I feel. For a ranked tier list like this, Dreamwitch more or less hasn't fallen off just yet. I think Dreamwitch is still fine the way she is, especially with the fact that like when playing Dreamwitch, you could almost play her against any type of team comp, maybe just except for Cowboys. I feel like going against Cowboys might be a little bit of a stretch, but sometimes I can see why I can see how Dreamwitch can counter the Cowboy too. For example, putting one leech near the survivor that's down on the ground and using the other to push Cowboy away and then pick it up and then hit Cowboy down, yada yada who XYZ. But yeah, I feel no. I do think Dreamwitch can counter Cowboy. Never mind. I just realized the way. You use one of your leash to grab it towards the chair on the balloon state, and you use the other leash to follow Cowboy. And if he does balloon, you hit Cowboy, and then you pick up the survivor that's on ground again, and then chair immediately while Cowboy's in 8-second cooldown. You know what? I'm a genius. But aside from that, Dreamwitch will still be a part of the meta. I believe that Dreamwitch, in Ivy's madness, it really is just, hey, what does Dreamwitch has? She has patrollers by 2 to 3 patrollers by early game to get a survivor down within 70 seconds, and then she can utilize her own leeches to throw it out in towards middle or towards a nearby cipher machine that has been decoded and start map controlling, cipher controlling, etc, etc. And it's also with the fact that as the game progresses, she'll get more leeches onto the survivors. Not only that, survivors will have to get rid of the leeches first. Survivor deletes faster as more players get eliminated, but that's fine. That will still guarantee you the tie. But I feel like for Dreamwitch as well, most of the times if you do see the last 3 cipher machine in a row, in which it happens a lot of the time when Dreamwitch mains know what they're doing, it's going to be really hard to actually pop off those cipher machines too. Overall for Dreamwitch, what I would say for her is her chase is kind of average, especially with the fact that she has Patroller to help. If she didn't have Patroller, it will be very, very, very extremely low, but since she does have Patroller, it does make her pretty average. Yes, Flywheel counters it, but it counters only one bot. You're still going to be able to get a hit on towards Survivor anyways, unless they do the most perfect rotation ever on those patrollers. And not only that, the second thing is Dreamwitch's map control is really decent. The more leeches she has on the field, the more she can control. But what I would like to say more or less is going to be the fact that you can at least lock one cipher machine, right, which basically slows down their decoding progress by quite a bit. So that's quite of a good plus on Dreamwitch. And not only that, Dreamwitch can change from Patroller to Trump card if you want to get spilling someone down. You can change to Abnormal if you want a Cipher Machine lock. If you want to teleport from one gate to another. I say all of it works pretty well in a sense. It does work pretty well in a sense. But more or less, for a trait like this, there is going to be a lot of downsides too. Like for each time you utilize your own trait, the other leeches will gain a 20-second plus cooldown. Look, that should be fine. That shouldn't be too much of an issue, especially when you use Patroller as well. You're most likely going to waste a bit of time using patrolling the patroller down and then biting on towards the survivor and forcing it to go into cooldown. So like, it already goes into cooldown, so it's fine overall. But more or less for Dreamwitch, she has average chase, she has high map pressure as long as she knows how to utilize her leeches properly, which kind of leads into map control and cipher control, and her chair camp is relatively okay. If she manages to hit someone outside of chair range and then there's another leech near the chair, you can get a double down stuff situation, or you can force survivors to fail rescue. But most of the time, if Dreamwitch actually gets a survivor down to basement, no one, and I mean this right, no one would want to go down to basement to rescue against a Dreamwitch, because they will always guarantee a double down situation no matter what rescuer you are. Mercenary, first officer, forward, it will always be a double down situation. So like, there's honestly speaking a lot of things to be worried about when rescuing against Dreamwitch in basement, but overall Dreamwitch is still a very, very, very good hunter. Now then, we'll move on. Next will be Axeboy. Axeboy will be a part of tie guarantee here as well. I feel like for Axeboy has a lot more leeway compared to, a lot of other characters. More or less for Axeboy right now, what I would like to say about him is I have not seen many people use Warp on Axeboy. I also don't recommend using Warp on Axeboy, especially with the fact that Axeboy has so many. His kit is basically high movement, slow debuff type character. He does have a chip potential as well. So what is Axway? Axway has Fire Souls that basically allows him to grab and either damage the survivor or pull it towards himself for a movement speed boost to catch up towards the survivor. And he has Restful Road, in which he places down a patch of tree spines. If I said that, is it spines? It's spines, right? Tree roots, tree spines. And he basically moves at a fast movement speed pace. In which I will say, look, if you really want to enable that second skill, you might as well bring Insolence that point. But by that point, I personally don't recommend Insolence. But also at the same time, I feel like Insolence might not be too bad, but I personally don't recommend it. I feel like with all his speed, movement, blah, 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 having a Blink probably would be better than having an Insolence. Overall though, for Axeboy as well, what I would probably say is even if you do have a very bad first chase, you should have a pretty decent chance of chair camping. Because like when it comes to Axeboy's chair camp, you can always almost, well not always, maybe 50-50 guarantee a chip on towards a survivor with a soul orb. How do you do that? You put a restful road on the ground and you can basically move it along it and try to get, and then pull the fireball in and then try to get the chip on towards the survivor. Sometimes you might realize, okay, I pull in my fire orb or purple orb and then the survivor manages to barely dodge it. The way to counter that is to put a restful road on the ground to give yourself a little bit of a movement speed boost when you pull it in, so at least you can kind of still guarantee it. It's a 50-50 situation, but you can still kind of guarantee it. And you know, with a double down situation, it does bring your game back by quite a lot. And I feel like as well, right, with Axeboy's orbs, souls, it's not too punishing. Like, Axeboy doesn't have any debuffs, surprisingly. If you think about it this way, right, if you pull the orbs and it lands on towards the survivor, they get damaged equivalent to 1 hit. But if they didn't get it, then it equals to a movement speed boost for you. So I think, like, even if you miss something, you don't really lose that much. But I guess the only issue is that it is pretty hard to land the fire orbs anyway, which might cause some issue from time to time. But like overall for Axeboy's chase, mid to late game goes from average to above average, especially when you open the max presence as well, where if the survivor leaves the tree root area, they will get a slow debuff for 2/3 seconds, which I think is pretty good if you want to guarantee a purple orb to land on towards the survivors. Fire orbs, fire souls, normal souls just rotate around, just randomly moves along the, you know, tree area. But for purple souls, what they do is when the survivor leaves the area, they orbit around that one survivor. So this basically can help you locate, you know, explorer if he leaves, or just locate anyone who is deciding to pull distance away from you instead of hiding, which I do think is pretty good. So like his chase goes from average to above average. His chair comp is there definitely for sure, and his map control is there definitely for sure, because the survivors do have to get rid of the trees mid to end game when Axeboy opened up his max presence. But overall, I would say from the survivor's point of view as well, yes, it is not too hard to actually dodge the fire souls, but if Axeboy really messes up hard, he does have a lot of movement speed and chip damage potential to get a double down or a stealth rescue on towards a chair to at least still bring the game back. Cough cough. Mid-tiers, Griffins, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at all of you when I count 180 seconds. Cough cough. Even though I do also throw the game as well, but you know what, I'll cough cough on myself as well. But yeah, overall I believe that Axeboy is still a part of tie guaranteed. Next will be Reptilian. Reptilian will also be a part of tie guarantee, but I'm gonna put him a little bit... It's a bit hard here because I believe that Reptilian's skill ceiling is above Soulweaver and Axeboy, but also at the same time he is very hard to play as well, which wants me to put him down. But if we're gonna talk about skill ceiling, I will put Reptilian up on top. Yeah, I will put Reptilian... I will probably just need to format it a little bit. I will put Reptilian up on top. Geisha goes behind. Okay, so Reptilian goes up on top. Right, and why does Reptilian go up on top? It's because Reptilian skill ceiling is higher compared to Weaver and Axeboy. For Evil Reptilian, you're able to jump over walls, you're able to crash down landing to get a chip damage on towards the survivor. You are going to be able to unlimitedly jump across the map when you open max presence as long as you have enough energy. But what does this mean? This means that you need to be very good at jumping. Right? So then, like, for Reptilian, what I would like to say more or less is his chase is going to be from average to above average or extreme as the game progresses. If he reaches max presence with a lot of energy, it will go up to extreme. But more or less for Reptilian, because of the fact that he can jump over pallets and jump over windows and then immediately drop down to hit on towards survivors, I feel like that is pretty strong in itself. But also, if the survivors knew that that's what Reptilian was going to do, they can react on time as well. But overall, what I would say, Reptilian, yes, he is still very hard to play, but catching up towards the survivor shouldn't be too much of an issue unless you're in like a 2-story area where your head could hit the ceiling, and that might hurt a little bit because it might hurt a lot because, you know, it is what it is. Overall, for Reptilian, if he crashes on towards something before he actually leaves the ground, his cooldown will reset, so that's kind of like your divine saving grace right there when you're on Reptilian main. But overall, for Reptilian, I more or less feel like Reptilian is quite a nice character to play. If you really had a really bad early game, you can chair camp. You can almost always guarantee a stuffed rescue or a double down scenario. Why? Because Reptilian, when he reaches presence 1 with the crash down, you don't need to fully jump up to get the crash down. You can jump halfway up and then crash down immediately to catch the survivors off guard, is what I recently learned from a Japanese channel. But apparently you need green pen on that as well, so feck me, feck you Americans, not really feck you guys, but feck the ping. My life sucks, and yeah. But overall, for Reptilian, I would say, like, if you really had a bad early game, you still have chair cam, which kind of almost always guarantees you, you know, your double hit scenario. And in that case scenario, right, in what I will really say is, hey, definitely still pretty doable for Reptilian, even if he did have a bad early game. Definitely a double down scenario, definitely a very viable double down scenario that definitely could occur quite a bit of times. Looking at you all Griffin players when I kite Lizard for 180 seconds and 2 of you fail chair rescue and both of you come at the same time with 1 cipher machine remaining. But anyways, yeah. Overall, what I will say for Reptilian is going to be dash. It is going to be dash. What else is there? He doesn't have any cipher control, but he does have map control because he can jump infinitely across the map if he really wants to do so. But overall, what I would say for Evil Reptilian is, if you have a really bad early start, you can always almost still guarantee the tie because of your crash and double hit potential on towards the survivors. But moving on. Next, we will have Bloody Queen. Bloody Queen will be... Bloody Queen is pretty versatile too. I feel like for rank, Bloody Queen is okay. For tourney, not so much, which is why you don't see her much in tourney. Yeah, I think for rank it's okay, because in rank they don't know your team comp. So like, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Bloody Queen, what is she? She is a slow movement type character, but she has her mirrors in which she allows her to throw it out and basically get a hit on towards the survivor by closing in the distance. She counters walls, she counters pallets with the mirror, and she counters I'm quite sure I said window. Did I say windows? I didn't say windows too. There is limited distance on BQ's mirror, but most of the times if a survivor is trying to pallet camp you, you can just throw the mirror out and then get a hit on them immediately anyways. But I feel like for Bloody Queen, she is very rank viable, but is she touring viable? No, not so much. But is she better than everyone else in warp viable and below? Yes, in a sense I would say so, in many cases too. Cause for Bloody Queen, she's afraid of harassers sometimes when they come harass, but then she's also not afraid of them because she has mirrors to counter it. She's afraid of people who pull distance against her, dodge her mirrors. but also at the same time she's also not too afraid as well, because she can just use her mirrors right after survivors use their items. There has been a lot of use cases that we've seen in Bloody Queen that they've been able to adapt pretty well with meta changes, and also at the same time I feel like when it comes to a quite decent Bloody Queen, they should be able to land their mirrors 4 times out of 5, 4 out of 5 times, which is a pretty good decent rate as well. She is going to be able to cipher control to a certain extent, but only one cipher machine, because you have to throw the mirror out to stop the survivor from decoding. And rebound kite potential against Bloody Queen is honestly speaking really low, because like once you're at half health with no items left, or even if you do have items, it's a 1 mirror 1 hit scenario. So like rebound kiting against BQ is still very hard. She is definitely tie guaranteeable. I think she could aim for more if your mirrors are perfect. Like, if you land your mirror 4 out of 5 times, it will always be like a tie game for you. And then like if the survivors make a mistake, it should be 3k, 4k you like sometimes too. But like most of the times it should be a tie game. Now, when it comes to Bloody Queen as well, I guess the major issue is just the fact Psycho and Seer might be your main issue, and Barmaid, but aside from that, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. What I would more or less like to say about Bloody Queen is that her chase, I don't know, her mirror is considered her chase as well, so I guess you can say her chase is average. Her chair camp is well, she doesn't have chair camp, so there's that. Well, you might say she has chair camp if she goes out, hit the survivors outside and then mirror back to get the hit on towards the chair. Maybe that's considered chair camp, but I haven't seen a lot of Bloody Queens do that before, especially like against rescuers in general. But if there is a rescuers, yes, definitely it is possible. But aside from that, I wouldn't say, yeah, let's just say she doesn't have any chair cam, but she does have a tiny bit of map control. You know, we'll say her chase is actually really good because of the fact that she doesn't get countered by pallets and such. So like pallet spamming doesn't really work against BQ when she has her mirrors. But also with BQ, you could potentially say her chair cam comes from pulling the mirror out near the chair and getting the hit on towards the survivor. You can try damage survivors when there's a survivor on a chair too, so there's kind of like a lot of ways to play this as well. You can utilize her mirrors to actually catch up towards the survivors ASAP if they're on the other side of the map too, so I guess there is quite a lot of leeway here for BQ to play. I would probably say she is definitely afraid of harassers like Badder, like Forward, but aside from that, Cowboy. But aside from that, everything should be fine for Bloody Queen. Maybe Bloody Queen should be a bit lower, but I feel like she is still pretty high on the list for me. We have seen Debo bring out Bloody Queen before, and I just feel like for a Bloody Queen you can at least still always guarantee a tie. But of course, when it comes to situations like rank, if you can land 4 out of 5 times your mirrors, it's always the tie. If you land 3 times out of 5, it should almost always be a tie, just depending on how bad your mirror misses are and how much time you have wasted. But overall for BQ, I would say she would be a part of Versatile. Next one will be Bonbon. Bonbon will be a part of Warp Viable. He's going to be above tie guarantee right now because Warp kind of just made him way better. I do feel like for Bonbon and Gala, we'll move on to Gala later. It's genuinely the fact that like when a lot of survivors are like, oh, I am going to pull distance against the Bonbon, and Bonbon can't basically land his bombs on towards the survivors. With the initial introduction of Warp, I genuinely didn't think that it was good for Bonbon, but realizing it when it's being played in tourney settings as well, it kind of just gave me a small bit of a euphoria, if that's the right word, that, oh wait, it's actually not too bad, because if Bonbon has max bombs on his hands, if he has 6 bombs on his hands and he warps towards the survivor to get close towards him immediately, the chances of him actually getting a double chip on towards the survivors is pretty high with 6 bombs and going. Because like once you use your bombs, it goes straight into cooldown, right? So then I would say probably have 8 bombs to get 2 chips on towards the survivors and hit them down, in which it's really not a bad exchange. And a lot of times if you bring Warp Bomb on, you brought instance as well, so you most likely will have remote control bomb as well to guarantee at least 3 chips. Overall for Bonbon, does he suffer from Cypher Rush? Yes, definitely, but if he can get a chase on towards the survivor, he lands his chips really fast. Bonbon is meta, Bonbon was meta, and was meta is because of the fact that he lands his chips very fast. right? He lands his chips very, very, very fast. That's what he was meta before. But like it has been changed, but he has been changed to tie guarantee because of the fact like you can pull distance against him, and even when you pull distance against him, if you do really bad, you can just sell whoever is on chair. Which is why I will say Bonbon has really, really, really bad chase, but because of warp, it does help out quite a bit, which is why it makes him warp viable. And it's also with the fact that if Bonbon wants to change targets right after the sell, warp also helps out quite a lot with that in finding the second chase immediately. Overall for Bonbon, that's kind of where his chase is coming from, right? Mid, early, or late game. But if we also conclude we also need to take into consideration of his chair camp as well, because this chair camp is absolutely extremely scary. Bonbon's chair camp is one of the most scariest chair camps out there. It's better than Gala. I would probably say it's not as good as Mad Eye's, but it's on par with Mad Eye's chair camp. Like with the chair camp, there's always a huge chance for a double down scenario or for, you know, a stuffed rescue, especially if he has a lot of bombs placed on the ground ready to go as well. For Bonbon, which is why not a lot of survivors are willing to come into rescue against a Bonbon, because there's just a huge chance for a double down scenario, and we don't really want that as these survivors, which is why they're not really willing to do so. But like overall for but then like aside from that, he has no map pressure, he has no cipher pressure. Well, he could have maybe below average cipher pressure if he's near a cipher machine that's being decoded and he throws the 5-second bomb out. Yes, that could definitely work. But aside from that, no, not really. He's extremely good when it comes to chair camp. And his chase is honestly okay now because of warp, but that's only because of warp. If there wasn't warp, his chase is absolutely horrible like Gala, like Mad Eyes. But yeah, I would say that is more or less for Bonbon. Bonbon does get countered by Cypher Rush. But then, like, if you do sell someone on chair, you can just immediately warp towards a survivor who you want to go for and get towards their faces immediately and then chase after them and get them down ASAP. Which is why he is going to be a part of warp viable instead of tie guarantee. He definitely is more than a tie character, in my opinion. Next will be Anne. Anne is going to be a part of Warp Viable too, and definitely above Bonbon. For Anne also suffered the same issue with Bonbon before Warp became available, and I do think the main issue with Anne was that when the survivors pull distance away, you can't really throw the cat out. You can throw the cat out to catch up, but then the moment that the survivor gets paddle or window speed boost and gets away from your swoop or your cat range, even if you jump, you're not able to catch up. So like if you get a first hit, great, but then like if you want to get a second hit and they're already so far away, that is a small bit of an issue, especially against entomologists, especially against cheerleader, especially against lawyer if they're looping around you near like, you know, 2-story areas and pulling such a huge distance, and against, you know, maybe acrobat, maybe who else is there again? Maybe acrobat, let me just check the survivors, maybe little girl with the pushback, maybe toy merchant, maybe barmaid as well because of the Dublin and the Dublin speed boost, maybe composer, maybe antiquarian, maybe fire investigator, etc. So like the main issue with Ant before is, okay, you land the cat on me, but was one jump enough to actually get the stun on me? If no, then oof, you basically lost your cat. If yes, then great. But sadly, the catwalk range isn't that big, isn't that long. So a lot of animes, even if they do get the cat on towards the survivor, it just ends up as, oh, I need to jump towards the survivor now. But then even if I jump towards the survivor, I might not be able to get a stun because they're just too far away from me. And even if you do want to catch up, sometimes you realize yourself, oh, I caught up, I jump, but then like by the time I jump, they're still pretty far away from you, or the cat has just disappeared. And I do think it's also with the introduction of the fact that you can burst your cat and then jump allows a lot of leeway for admins to play now alongside with warp. Once again, we will complain about NA server being able to have the advantage point of that, and EU server and everyone else just starts crying over it. But you know, it's overall it is what it is, right? So yeah, for For Anne, I would say she is definitely very worth viable. Warp made her even better, more than a Thai character as we have seen in multiple tourney games as well. But if all goes down bad, she is still Thai. If all goes down bad, she is still Thai. But like when it's a 50-50 situation, she can almost always aim for a win, especially in rank 2. And as well, if you think about it right, so like her chase goes from average to above average with 2 catwalks and with a warp. And then after that, she does have chair camp as well. I would say her chair camp is above average because a lot of rescuers counter Anne's, cats. A lot of rescuers basically can counter Anne's chair camp. And how do you do it? Even if you're not a rescuer, what you could do is you dodge the hit, or you forcefully take the cats on you to get the stun immediately anyways. So then like when the next time Anne comes around, so then like when Anne hits you can just immediately rescue and it's not a failed chair camp. The only way Anne can actually get a good chair camp is that if she hits you first and then you get stunned. That's how it works. But most of the time that does not happen. It really just depends on the survivor as well who comes into rescue. But what I would like to say is most of the time that it doesn't really happen. So like for Anne, her chair camp still is above average. It's a bit, I wouldn't say it's too hard to do, but it's hard enough. But like whoever gets rescued from chair, rebound kite containment is absolutely 0, nada, null, 9. Okay, just know they will not be able to rebound. You are not going to be able to rebound kite against an Anne. You are not going to be able to rebound kite against Anne. So like for Anne, okay, chase is that, chair camp is that. Map control is more or less just, if you throw the cat out and then you get the cat on towards the survivor and then burst the survivor, so then they can't use their items or touch the cipher machine. That's about that. That's about that for map and cipher control. But yeah, Anne is going to be a part of Warp Viable. Next we will have Violinist. Violinist will be a part of niche, but I'm gonna put him on very low niche. Overall for Vio, I would say Vio is more or less like, I do think Vio is okay if you play them a lot, but I still feel like his strings are very inconsistent if you compare it to Mary's mirrors. Violinist doesn't really have chase early, mid to late game. He does have a little bit of cipher control when he opens first present, in which those are demon notes. You throw out by performing base attacks, and if you land one on a survivor, it reduces their decoding speed by 10%, 15% and 20%, if I am not wrong, per each stack, up to a maximum of 3 stacks. Now the decoding debuff could be a bit more. I remember once I saw it was like 50%. I will probably fact check that at the end of this as well. But overall for Vio, the main reason why he's a part of niche, I will put him on unreliable too, but because he does have chair camp potential, I did decide to put him a little bit higher. But his chair camp potential also isn't like strong compared to maybe Axeboy, compared to maybe Reptilian, in a sense like that, to put him up on tie guarantee. But overall for Vio, how would one think of Vio, you may ask? In a sense, Violinist could be considered as a character in which you need to play a lot of games with him to actually land his strings properly. That is definitely the most worst notey thing about Vio that we could talk about. But of course, landing the strings is harder than actually performing a mirror compared to BQ. Now I know that I'm comparing him a lot to BQ and it might seem unfair, but they do have very similar kits. They do have very similar kits. So like there just goes with a lot of things, you know, in general. Oh, by the way, the decoding debuff is 15, 30 and 50% if you land on it, and it's called Terrifying Melody. Rhapsody is the ability that allows you to throw demon notes out, but like 50% decoding debuff is quite a lot. Of course, it's very similar to Soul Weaver as well, in which you kind of have to stand still and dispel it, but you need to be away from the hunter's Terror Shock radius. Well, not Terror Shock radius, but the heartbeat radius would be the right way to say it. But overall for Violinist, chase is really bad. His chair camp is below average to average, I guess. I wouldn't even say his chair camp is that good, especially with how easily dodgeable it is. and his map control is none, but he does have a little bit of cipher controlling, which it forces the survivor to actually, you know, try to dodge the demon notes that's been thrown at them. Now, the only issue with demon notes as well is the fact that it's also really hard to land, especially if you're on the other side of the map, and especially when demon notes travel very, very slow across the map as well. So like, with the survivors, they can see globally where the demon notes are coming from, and they can just dodge it. And even if you do land it on them, they can just stand still and start praying for a little bit, for maybe, if I'm not wrong, like 10 seconds or less, just to get rid of all the demon notes you stacked on them. But like overall for Vio, his chase consistency is really bad, but when you land those strings, you land those strings. I most likely would have put Violinist on unreliable if it wasn't for his chair camp, as we said before as well. For Vio's chair camp, it's really just depending on how well you can use his strings, is what I personally believe. I always believe that when it comes to Vio's chair camp, it's always heavily advantageous to the survivor and never to the hunter, in my opinion. But yeah, overall, Vio will still be a part of tie guarantee. Not tie guarantee, niche. Oh my god, I'm messing up my words. Did I not sleep one last night? But like, his max presence is called infinite movement, in which when you throw the strings out and they basically connect, you can utilize this max presence in order for a row of strings to actually a row of string to be activated or summoned, and you can try damage the survivor that way. It's like an AoE attack, but very, very, very non-flexible. The only issue with this is, as long as survivor just stands still in between the notes, they can dodge it perfectly, or like if they time it correctly as well while running, which is definitely possible. So like when the string behind you spawns, you can keep running forward, but when the string behind you spawns, you move backwards until the string in front of you spawns, and then you move forward again. That's kind of how you dodge dash as well, which is more or less just, oh, it really just depends on whether the survivor know how to counter Violinist or not, because like he's heavily counterable, that's 100% for sure. Now, the good buff that he had, which is included in his skill 1, is the fact that he can now cancel the strings if he doesn't want to use it, or he can, the string length in total has been increased by 3 meters. So then like you can throw it further out, I guess, in a sense, or you can pull it further across. It just makes your infinite movement, which is your max presence, a bit easier to land maybe, or more area to land, I guess, in a sense. But aside from that, I wouldn't really put him any higher, still a part of niche. Now next comes Sculptor. Sculptor, it's a bit unfortunate for Sculptor. I want to put her on tie guarantee, but I'm gonna be fully honest with everyone. Sculptor is a part of niche as well. I know last season I put her on versatile A tier, but this season I guess we will have to face the reality once again. Warp definitely made Sculptor better, but it doesn't make any more difference. 2 reasons. So what does Sculptor have? Sculptor have her statues, in which there is the statue of wisdom and the statue of agility. Wisdoms are the horizontal statues, and agility are the vertical statues. When you open presence 1, you have what this thing is called a chisel, in which it is a global item in which you can throw around the map, and it gives you a bird eye view of wherever the chisel lands. And then when you reach the max presence, you have Sculpture of nobility, in which it's like a homing missile, but there is a 1-second delay before this statue is merged and sent out towards the heavens, I guess. You need to merge 2 statues together to be able to use this, which makes it pretty nice in a sense that it's very similar to Bonbon with no presence. Sculptor max presence is like Bonbon no presence. But the only difference between Sculptor and Bonbon is the fact that Sculptor's statues are considered an obstacle. Meanwhile, for Bonbon, even if you put a bomb in between pallets, survivors are going to be able to run through it anyway compared to Sculptor. Now, what is one thing that made me think Sculptor is bad? One of the biggest reasons is she's been out for so long now, and it just feels like everyone knows how to counter her now, unless they make really, really, really bad mistakes. When it comes to Sculptor's chase, it is really bad. Yes, warp does make her better sometimes, but once again, if the survivor have items and you decide to warp, you're just going to get countered immediately by, like, you know, maybe Aeroplanist jetpack, maybe Cheerleader's pom-pom, maybe Patient's hooks, maybe like just a lot of other stuff in mind. And if it's not, and if you do decide to bring warp, you need to take into consideration that you're not going to be able to blink past pallets, and if the survivor really do decide that they want to pallet spam against you, you as a Gala main will have to break those pallets. You don't have to break every pallets, but all the crucial pallets, definitely yes. And why am I saying that you have to break every pallet? It's because of the fact that Gala's Sculptor's attack animation is way too long. And what does that mean? When you're holding a statue and the survivors are looking behind them, they know that okay, this guy's holding the statue. What do I have to do? All I have to do is not vault over this pallet. And when she releases her statues, I vault over immediately. Or when she cancels her statues, I vault over immediately. Or I slow vault. And what do I mean by slow vault? Now, as a Gala main, I'll probably make a separate video on this, but as a Sculptor main who has been playing for basically since her release, her attack animation is way too slow. And if the survivor vaults slowly across a pallet and you decide to hit right afterwards, it's not going to register, sadly, because that's kind of just life as a Gala main. Like any other hunter, maybe yes, but Gala, no. Sadly, Gala is a no-no situation. If you drop, like, how many ways can you counter a statue? Oh, you want to put a statue in between the pallet? No problem at all. What I'll do is I drop down the pallet and then I'll vault over the pallet instead. And you don't have enough time to change between the vertical statue towards the horizontal statues, right? Or the horizontal statues to the vertical statues. You just don't have enough time to change. You really don't have enough time to change, especially with the fact that muscle memory is a thing as well, which allows survivors to vault over pallets and window 15% faster. It's even harder for you to chip now compared to Bonbon. So that's in between pallets. Okay, what about vaulting over pallets? We just talked about it before. You can kind of bait the Sculptor into putting down a statue by crouching or by kneeling, pretending you're going to vault. Or if the Sculptor is near you, you just stand still until she releases or cancels the statues and you vault over. If you want to play it very safe when it comes to vaulting over pallets as well, slow vault the pallet. Just slow vault the pallet. Because when the Sculptor puts her statues down and you slow vault the pallet, like, unless you're 80% through the pallet vaulting animation, you won't get chipped. Isn't that also an issue for Gala then? Isn't that another great way to counter Gala? Now, when it comes to windows, it's a bit different because windows are very thin, but statues are very thick. So there's that too. And then, like, also when it comes to windows as well, you might say, hey, but like, yada yada who. And let me just tell you this, Sculptor vaults over windows Sculptor vaults over windows pretty averagely, but like, she is forced to only use one set of statues to actually get a chip on you. You cannot use the horizontal statues to chip, you need to use the vertical statues to chip, unless she's in a very good position to do that. Okay, so that's windows. And like, it's also the fact that, like, even if you're near tight pallet areas, as long as the survivor just stands still, they won't get chipped. They won't get chipped. I don't know what's been happening. They've recently been nerfing Sculptor statues quite a lot. Like, for example, back in the day in Leo's Memory Shack, you're able to put a statue in between those two pallets. Nowadays, you're not able to do that anymore. Another good example is Leo's Memory at the back of the factory near that one pallet towards the, you know, long window at factory. You also can't put a statue in between. You cannot put a horizontal statue or a vertical statue in between those pallets anymore. You can, but you need to be very, very accurate with it, and I've never seen that happening before. And then it's been like the recent last year that I realized that, oh wait a second, this is an issue. Where else? Like, a lot of shack areas don't allow you to put statues in between pallets anymore, and back then they allowed you to do it. And even Arms Factory in middle, you are supposed to be able to put a horizontal statue in between the pallets, and now I don't know what they changed about the map, or they narrowed the hole or the entrance down, but I can't put a horizontal statue in between them. I can put a vertical statue if I am in the correct position, but the horizontal statue basically non-existent. It's basically non-existent. I don't know what's happening. I also don't know what's happening. Maybe it's a me issue, but maybe it's a pin issue, but I don't know what's happening. Is pin getting worse? I don't know. And then, like, aside from that, you might say, oh, Sculptor has map control. Yes, she does, which is why she's not a part of Unreliable, which is why she's a part of Niche. But that chisel's not gonna do much. as long as the survivor just decodes, switch positions, decode, switch positions, decode, switch positions, they're never gonna get chipped. Survivors can't decode the cipher machine, and the moment they see the statue spawn, they can just get out of the way immediately. You won't get chipped immediately. You need to wait for the statue to fully spawn before you actually get chipped. So what does a lot of high tier survivor do when I'm trying to chisel out? They'll start rotating around that cipher machine in the most unpredictable way ever. And even if I do put the statue down in the right direction, they'll just dodge it immediately because the statue spawn time gives them enough time to dodge. So that's basically your chisel effect. And even if you say, hey, what about max presence? Mate, max presence is so hard to land. They're just running a straight line and they're able to dodge it. Think about how I feel. Just think about how I feel. Oh, you throw the first statue down, you throw the second statue down. They need to wait for 1 second before they actually merge and collapse on towards the survivor. Survivor just does a mini ballet dance and that's it. I'd be doing mini ballet dances when I put down double statues too. Why? Because the survivor always does it, and I kind of just do it now as well, just because. And like, if I'm a Griffin survivor and I'm able to kite an S badge gala consistently, well, 70-30, then it's a gala issue. It's a gala issue. It's a gala issue. It's not a player issue anymore. It's a gala issue. Then that is a gala issue. I know I sound very passionate because I main gala. I need to main someone new. Melee Hunter, come out! But like, it is a gala issue. It really is a gala issue. I played IVT 16 to top 8 and I keep losing. I can't do anything about it. Who counters Gala, Acrobat, Cordy, Antiquarian. Basically a lot of all the other survivors counter Gala, Patient, Aeroplanist. Like, everyone knows how to counter Gala now, so like, it's just meh. But like, if you want to talk about the good thing about Gala, I guess it's the fact that her chips are considered an obstacle, so you can at least push back survivors sometimes, or to like cancel chair rescue animation. But aside from that, I mean, as a Gala main, I do encourage people to play her more because she's cute, and that's the only reason why. And she's also fun too. She's hard, but she is fun. When you land those statues and when you actually get those double chips, it's a euphoria feeling. But then, like, when they know how to counter you and they start containing you, it's like, oh lord, I'm gonna cry. But like, overall, Gala is a niche. Gala is really niche for me. Moving on. Next will be Undead. Undead will be a part of niche as well. I'll put Undead somewhere here. I'll put Undead behind Smiley Face. Right? So, why do I think Undead is a little bit above? It's because of his chase capability, I feel. Now, when you play Undead, you do need to play quite a lot of games to actually maximize out your chase ability, especially when playing Undead as well. There's so many different ways to play him. There's so many different dashes as well to take into consideration. That, you know, when you master him properly, he is really good. But what is the biggest problem with Undead, which is why we put it in niche? It's because of the fact that even if you get a very fast early down, the survivors can just decode by themselves, or they can crawl towards a very safe area to get healed or contain in, and there's nothing that you can do as an Undead. Undead is very afraid of tide kiting, and what is an issue with tide kiting? It's the fact that you will be forced to either always maintain a 50 stack in order to break the pallet instead of slow breaking the pallet and allow the survivors to continue, or you will have to how do I say, get a very fast down immediately, or play very hard pallet mind games. And I also do think it's because of the fact that Undead, yes, his first skill is a skill that allows you to dash. It's called kinetic dash hit, in which you dash, and then if you're 50 energy and above, you jump up and then you can leap down again over a pallet or a window. But if the survivor decides to hug the pallet or hug the window, you're not going to get that hit anyway, so like, good luck, have fun with you on that part. What is his second skill? His second skill is called Charged Strike. And what is Charged Strike? Charged Strike is basically Undead stays stationary and he holds his weapon and starts charging, making a big AoE area very similar to Violinist, but it gradually increases the wish. And then if they're still within the area, they would get hit and damage. But what is the issue with this skill? The issue with this skill is the fact that survivors can run out faster than the area gets, than the wish itself expands. So like, this ability by itself, unless survivors are vaulting over pallets or window during the time that you're doing the charge, then it's not gonna land. And it's not only that, it is not only that as well. If I am not wrong, your charge strike, you can only reactivate it for the second time after you have reached a certain threshold or your energy is above 50, if I am not wrong, by the way. I'm not too sure about this, but like I know you can damage them once after your charge reached past 60%, but then I have seen undead minions using it once to get the stun and using it for the second time to definitely get the chip, definitely get the half health damage hit as well. I am not too sure how it is done since I don't play undead as much, but I'm quite sure it's when you're over 50 stacks of energy or you're over a certain thresh point, or you need to recast it as soon as possible, but I just wasn't being able to do it because of my pin issues, or I'm just dumb, right? So there is that. And then the last skill ability of Undead really is just he can gain 50 stacks when he's below 50 stacks of energy, or lose 50 stacks when he's over 50 stacks of energy. And this is just kind of like a micromanagement system of his energies, whether he wants to keep his dashes and break the pallets, or to remove his leap up and then just keep dashing instead. But like after all the skill introduction of Undead, we have noted quite a few major things. But like once again, because of the fact that his chase ability is so good, he has no map control. Well, he does have map control because he can dash, but he's no cipher control and he's no chair camp, which is the big issue. Like the big four of hunters is map control, cipher control, chair camp, and chase. Those are the big four. Right, and Undead has two, but because of the fact that Undead has two, that also means that he doesn't have the other two, and the other two is pretty important as well, right? Because like you would want a rescuer to come in to rescue and then waste more of their time decoding, but in this case scenario, all three other survivors can just decode, and like the survivor who's down on the ground can just self-heal. So there's your issue there too. And not only that, Undead has 5 dashes only. So right after he consumed all 5 dashes getting the survivor down, you need to be able to move towards the next target immediately and then get them down ASAP. Which is why like for Undead, it's kind of like saying, hey, if the survivors can self-heal and go towards a safe area themselves and the other survivors can cipher rush you, then like for you need to maximize your chase ability. You need to get the survivors down within 20 seconds of change targets. You probably need to use warp to warp back towards the survivor in which you downed, because the survivor will be highlighted. And even in that case scenario, they might crawl into a very good area to contain it, and then like they're going to continue for a little bit longer, and then by the time they continue for a little bit longer, the other survivors will just be healed and they'll just be decoding, and there'll probably be one cipher machine remaining, and then yada who. And so if the survivor decides to body block, then it's even more time wasted for you, because now in this case scenario they're just cipher rushing even more now. And not only that, for Undead, you don't, because of the fact that survivors can crawl, they can because of the fact that survivors can crawl and you can't chair, that means you cannot slug. And if you cannot slug, it's really bad. If you want a 4-man elimination, you can't. Why? Because the survivor on the ground can just crawl towards the dungeon, or if you get a survivor down and they get eliminated immediately, the other survivor will just be at the dungeon. Or even if you want to get a survivor down but you can't find the other one, and the survivor managed to make it to dungeon, you leave them on the ground and they bleed out. You can't chair them, so that's an issue. You want a 4K but you can't get a 4K, which is why he's not that good for Tony, because of this one simple reason, which always allows survivors to guarantee a 1 escape. But aside from that, in rank it's also the same reason too. Sometimes survivors are even able to crawl out of exit gates, which makes Undead really sad. So yeah, Undead is a part of niche. Next we will have Breaking Wheel. I'll put Breaking Wheel on versatile for rank. It seems like he's okay in tourneys for now, if he gets the first down fast enough. But I would say Breaking Wheel is pretty versatile still. A few reasons, right? Well, maybe I'll get a lot of crap for this for sure, but for me personally, I feel like Breaking Wheel isn't too bad in rank, because you don't see a lot of Breaking Wheels in rank. Now he is heavily map dependent, yes, but aside from that, he is still pretty good in a sense. Why am I saying this? Because like, if you get one, like if you're worried about not being able to get a survivor down, or not being able to get 2 spikes on towards a survivor, what you could do is you can get 1 spike on towards a survivor, change forms, and then try land the trap, and then hit him. And then once you open first presence, pessimistic, you get a spread out spikes and then spike on towards survivor and snap them down. that is one of the reasons why I think Breaking Wheel is good. Right, because you can do that instead of getting 2 spikes, or even like if you only got 1 spike but you can't get a hit, you can change wheel form immediately and try to get another spike on them. And then another reason is there's no body block potential against a Breaking Wheel, and Breaking Wheel is very versatile when it comes to changing targets as well, getting survivors down and slugging them. I personally prefer Breaking Wheel slugging survivors and changing targets. And also this works really well in rank because you're not always in a 4-man team, so it's overall not too bad. And it's also the fact that not a lot of people still, well, people know how to counter Breaking Wheel, but if you don't play against Breaking Wheel that often, you won't know how to counter Breaking Wheel. That's kind of where the gist we're at right now, in my personal opinion. Now, of course, Flywheel does counter Breaking Wheel. I'm not saying Flywheel doesn't, but the chances of survivors bring Flywheel all the time is still pretty low, especially in rank as well. Maybe you'll see harassers bring Flywheel, which is fair enough, but like in the current day meta, there's not that much harassers anymore. Like, yes, you do have Prospector, which is an exception, but like Batter, you don't see him that often in rank. Well, in NAE, you don't. Enchantress, I don't see her at all in rank as well. Who else is there? There could be, oh well, Anti-Current, but like the difference with Anti-Current there is you can just get 2 spikes and then snap her down, or you can get, or if she's a half health, you can try snap her down. But then like if you're worried about, you know, oh, what survivors can Flywheel my snaps, my Thanos snaps, you can kind of use a salute emote to bait it out. Apparently you like it has been doable before. It definitely has been doable before, and I've seen people doing it before as well, so like you could try that as well. Maybe for this season I feel like he's more versatile, because he's versatile, like guaranteed on that spot, simply because of the fact that not a lot of people know how to counter him in rank. And even if they do know how to counter him, you do need to play like a few games against him first to be able to get your momentum back as well. And like I do also think it's with the fact that because of how fast he can target change, and he does have a little bit of chair camp as well. If he gets a spike on towards a survivor and they come into rescue late, then you can try to get the after half rescue on towards the survivor. And of course with the recent incidents buff as well, I feel like that did make him pretty good too. I do feel like that did make him pretty good too. But you know, aside from all that fact, he does have some cons in which, oh, you can Flywheel his max presence, you can Flywheel his snaps, you can Flywheel his you can Flywheel the wheel himself to prevent a spike landing onto you. And then like his turns aren't sharp, which is fair enough, but like if they are trying to continue in an open area, just switch to human form and try land a slow trap on them and then get a hit on them or something. And then if they're back into, because like what you have to think is, okay, they're trying to contain me in an open area, I want to change the human form and force them off their items and change back to wheel form again and try to spike them. That's probably your mindset of what you should be doing, in my personal opinion. And like, Wheelie is a great character for slugging. Wheelie is like a woo-woo, in which my teleportation is only 8 seconds long and Woo's teleportation is 15 seconds long if I'm not wrong, or longer. I might have to fact check this. Hold up a minute. How long is Woo's teleportation time? Woo's teleportation time on the umbrella is 30 seconds. So it's basically 3 times, well, 3.5 times faster. So Wheel's teleportation is 3.5 times faster, and you get extended spikes, and you can snap down the survivors, and you can damage control throughout the game. And like if you one survivor eliminated, you can go throughout the map, get 2 spikes, and then snap the survivor to half health, and then like find someone else, and then like, you know, when everyone's at half health they have to heal, but if they don't heal you can just change targets and get someone down immediately once again, etc, etc. It's a bit similar to Ivy's gameplay, but I guess he's not really that better than Ivy in a sense as well. But for Breaking Wheel, he has very high chase. He has a little bit of chair camp, which is very below average, and he has map control, just not any cipher control. But like fast chase and map control is already really good, with a small bit, very small hint of chair camp, which is why I believe that he is pretty versatile. Now, I'm not disagreeing that you can kite him in open areas, but also at the same time I feel like there are multiple ways to counter it, unless the survivors are really good, I guess. But yeah, that's for Wheel. Next on the tier list will be Naiad. For me, Naiad will probably be a part of tie guarantee for this season too. Would we make her warp viable or versatile? No, I wouldn't really put her up that much, because I just feel like You know, to counter Naiad, it's all about transitional kiting. Current day meta, it is transitional kiting, so I personally don't think I can put Naiad any higher because of that too. And like, with so much in regards to that as well, like, for Naiad, she has harpoons, it's 8-second cooldown per each, but like, you need to be able to make an abyss to be able to get the chip damage on towards the survivors. And like, it's also with the fact that if you decide to just normal chase after the survivors, it's not that much of a good thing either. Why, you may ask? It really is just simply because of the fact that survivors can just stand in between pallets and waiting for you to pull back your harpoon and then throw the pallet down and then run away. So then like, A, not only can survivors see where a harpoon is, B, they are going to be able to judge based off the direction where you're going, whether you're trying to make an abyss or just to catch up or not. And then C, yes, you're going to be able to lock off areas of containment, but once again, this meta is all about transitional characters such as Patience, such as Aeroplanist, Cheerleader, Acrobat, etc, etc. Now you will have the odd exception of, Prospector, Anti-Courier being the two that can push hunters back or disarm them, so then like they can't get a hit on you anyways. So yeah, I can't really see Naiad any higher now. Of course, if you have any other opinions, please feel free to drop it down, and maybe I'll change my opinion for next season. But overall, Naiad is still tie guarantee for me. Her chase is definitely good. She does have average chair cam too, very similar to maybe Robbie, I guess, since you definitely can make a really big puddle abyss and try to get chip damage on towards survivor and get a double down situation, or even just get a stopped chair rescue. I feel like for Naiad as well, even if you do bad early game, you still have that chair cam. You still do have a little bit of cipher control too if you can chair it near a cipher machine. So then like, you can throw the harpoon out, lock the cipher machine so the survivors can't decode it anymore because of the fact that they have moisture on them. But like, overall for Naiad, I genuinely do feel like, hey, she's not that much of a bad character. She is pretty fun to play as well sometimes. Personally, from my opinion, sometimes she's pretty fun to play. But like, even if you do bad early game, you still do have chair cam, you still do have a little bit of cipher control / map control because of how fast you can rotate around the map as well. And of course, with her recent buff of, reducing the regeneration, the cooldown of surging tides to dash from 18 seconds to 16 seconds, it's pretty nice, honestly. 2 seconds is 2 seconds. If they reduce statue time from 16 seconds to 14 seconds, it will be game changing for me. Well, it probably won't change that much, but it's game changing for me. But like, aside from that, Naiad is still pretty good. You would rather bring Blink on her instead of Warp. I don't really see Naiad on Warp. We can just throw Harpoon on and then catch up ASAP. So like, personally, I rather see a Blink Naiad than a Warp Naiad myself. But yeah, Naiad is tie guaranteeable for me this season. Now next you will have Wax Artist. Wax Artist will be a part of Versatile too. He'll most likely be ahead of GameKeeper in this sense as well, because of Warp. He was always versatile. He was always good in rank, but I think because of the introduction of Warp, right now for a lot of Wax Artist mates, they can just use Warp, catch up towards survivors immediately, get like 80-90 stacks on towards survivor, hit them, and then get another stack on them ASAP, which kind of acts like a blink down. But like, due to the introduction of Warp, a lot of the time survivor counter Wax Artist by actually putting as much distance away as possible, which made him quite hard to play or get a hit on towards the survivors. But now, because of the fact that Warp actually exists, Warp is a thing now, a lot of Wax Artists, what they will do is they will try to land as much Wax as possible, and then like, they really can't catch up towards the survivor because it's all transitional containment meta right now. Honestly, what Wax Artists can do is to throw the item out, and even if the character pulls distance, they won't be able to cut, tight corners ASAP, and Wax Artists can get wax on them and then stun them and then get another wax on them or something to get them down as soon as possible. But like, not only that, Wax Artist works really well with Warp because of the fact that he can roam around the map and lock cipher machine. So then not only do you slow down survivors decoding progress early game, you can also buy a lot of time for yourself to see if you can find any survivors that you want to chase. If you brought Quenching Effect alongside with Warp, even better for you. Overall, Wax Artist doesn't have that much of a good chase aside from his wax that you need to land, but then like, if survivors just cut corners, cut walls, then you won't be able to land it as easily. But then like, with the introduction of Warp, it makes him a bit better in that case too. Wax Artist does have a little bit of chair camp when he reaches max presence. Sometimes you might see Wax Artist going out to hit survivors or get survivors onto like 85% wax, throw the blob wax towards the chair and then hit them, and then when a survivor comes towards the chair they'll get stunned and double down situation. In that case scenario, you could say Wax Artist has a little bit of chair camp, but of course he does have a definite chair camp when he is at max presence, in the case where he can get normal wax on towards the survivor and then hot wax just to try to get the 50% health bar and then normally hit dump down. Now for Wax Artist chair camp, there is also this thing where you can try get 100% stack onto a survivor and force an after half rescue, but this is still pretty rare to see because like survivors in that case scenario can just immediately rescue instead of playing around with you. Right, and especially with the introduction of like a lot of the rescuers who can get towards the chair really easily, it is more or less just, hey, question markable, is this really a thing that Wax Artists can do? It is, but it's very rare for this to happen as well. So like aside from chair camp, he does have decent cipher control in which he can lock cipher machines from very far away with his wax, and then with the blob wax as well, he can just lock it immediately, but of course that consumes way more wax than just normal wax in general. Now of course, aside from that, Wax Artist also has this thing in which if you if you throw the blob wax down, or if you just wax on towards a pattern or a window or a cipher machine, the survivors cannot interact with it. And then when you throw wax on towards a survivor too, depending on how much they have, it will slow down their vaulting and their movement speed by a certain amount of percentage. I'm quite sure movement speed is like, it'll slow you down by 5%, but then for vaulting I'm quite sure it's 10% debuff. Could be a bit more, but that should be around that range. So yeah, Wax Artist is still pretty versatile when it comes to I can lock cipher machines, I've warp now to chase after you, I can prevent you from vaulting over windows or pallets, and I can slow you down by a little bit. And there's also one more thing, it's the fact that Wax Artist has an innate trait of when he gets stunned, he recovers 10% faster, and if he gets stunned when a survivor is close to him, they'll get 25 wax on them too. So Wax Artist is really good against harassers that basically stuns you mid-kite or anything in general. So, and he has a chip potential too. So yeah, Wax Artist will be a part of versatile. Then we'll be able to see Hermit. Hermit is also going to be a part of versatile too, especially in rank, simply because of the fact that you don't have 4-man team as well. It's very similar to Dreamwitch in a sense, but I guess for Hermit, he is also like a guaranteeable versatile character because of Warp 2. It's kind of the same issue with Wax Artist. Okay, if you're too far away, you can't get the stun, you can't get the hit onto a survivor, but because Warp is like a trait now, we have seen a lot of IGL players using Warp as well, just to try and counter the distance pulling meta that we're currently facing, which of course, you know, it does do quite a bit. It does definitely guarantee the time in tourneys as well, so like, you know, in rank it definitely should be able to do quite a lot too. Hermit, there's a lot of different playstyles. We have seen Akka, who uses Hermit to chase after rescuers like Mercenary first. We have seen the no link Mercenary the no link Hermit early game, in which you're focused fully on chasing instead of damage sharing against survivors, and just trying to get the survivors in within 60 seconds and then link up the cipher machine. That is the second Hermit playstyle. And then the third one is just really change targets as much as possible and damage them, and then try to get someone down and then force them to heal and waste as much time as possible too. But once again, because of the fact that accelerated decoding is a thing, once you reach the mid to late game, survivors are going to be able to decode pretty fast, but of course that's in exchange for the time that they spend healing as well when you damage control across the map. For Hermit, he has when he has 0 presence, he has this thing where he can link up cipher machines to slow them down from decoding, and slow them down from decoding by 15% and transmission by 35%. And the other 50% decoding speed is on the cipher machine itself. For Hermit as well, he has this thing in which you call it a miracle orb, in which you can throw it all across the map. But of course, if it hits an obstacle, it will immediately create a polarity. If it's a complete opposite polarity, very similar to Prospector, you will get a stun. Right, so then like in that case scenario, you kind of want to land the polarity as close towards the survivor as possible just so you can guarantee the hit. But of course, if you do manage to land the stun, you can at least still catch up towards the survivor. But then like you would prefer the first option instead of the second option most of the time. When Hermit reaches first presence, you'll get attraction as a skill in which you can teleport. Well, not teleport. You can move yourself up towards the sky in a bird's eye view and then teleport outside towards a certain radius in which you can try to get a stun on towards survivors and hit them as well. And of course, when it comes to max presence, you get 2 stacks instead of 1 stack of each skill at Miracle Orb and attraction. Overall for Hermit, yes, he does get countered by Barmaid, Psycho and Doctor, and of course healing overall, but like usually what I would say is stun type characters are still very stable, because if you can stun them, you stun them in between pallets, you bring fast pallet break and get a hit on them anyway. It's very similar to Anne, but because of the fact that he has more control over Cypher machines and he has more control of the map because of his teleportation skills, and well, I mean his chase gets better as the game goes through because of attraction too as well, and because of the stun as well. But overall, Hermit has a little bit of like below average to average chase, and then map control is like below average to average map control, and then like Cypher control is like above average, and then you do have chair camp as well as Hermit, in which if the survivor does come in late to rescue, you can get first 2 stuns of 2.5 seconds, and then the third stun is only 1 second, so you can kind of like buy 6 seconds bare minimum time to force the survivor after half. But like aside from that, Hermit is still quite a nice character play. His only downside is the fact that the damage sharing on the survivors and then the end game with the the tension, tankish, etc, etc. Okay, let's move on. The next will be Nightmare. Nightmare is unreliable. I know there is a lot of Nightmare mains out there, and once again, kudos to you guys playing Nightmare. I will give you a golf clap if you can hear that. And I don't like him. I personally have a big bias towards him, and I will back up my statement here because I don't want to seem like too much of a bias. But okay, let's talk about Nightmare. Nightmare doesn't have chase except for his 10% movement speed boost when he's not looking at survivors. Nightmare doesn't have chair camp. Really well, he does have a bit of chair camp with his crows, but it depends on whether you want a chair camp or Cypher camp. And even if he does have chair camp, it will just get countered by rescuers overall. Now, during the times when you don't have any rescuers on the enemy survivor team, they most likely will have high movement type survivors that's going to be able to get towards the chair fast. So like in that case scenario 2, the chair camp is a bit of a meh situation from both sides really, but at least he can always guarantee the hit. He does have very good map control mid to late game if he does bring trump card or if he has warp or teleport, so he can go across the map pretty fast. But for Nightmare, what is his biggest issue is actually early and mid game, and just let me explain to you why. So if you are Nightmare main and you have area selection mode, most of the time survivor would just rotate very far away from you unless they are a rescuer. But most of the time as well, when you are playing Nightmare, you wouldn't really run away from the rescuers usually wouldn't leave the area, right? So then like what does that mean? That means okay, you might be able to chase after the rescuer, but rescuer has so many items that they're really good at containment and rescuing. It goes hand in hand. So what now this means is that you're chasing after 1 slow decoder and there's 3 fast decoders out there. So even if you get this survivor down in like within blink time, if you just did decide to bring blink, Cypher machine would be 3 Cypher machines done by the time you do that, which is a bit of an oofus doofus moment. And not only that, if you want to change target, you need to bring teleport or insolence, so then you can crow away from the area. Now yes, of course early game you can throw crows out towards Cypher machines where they're being decoded and slow it down, but even so, what I would like to critique about that is if you throw it out towards the Cypher machine, then that means that you can't use it on the survivor you're chasing against right now to see them. That's kind of my small critique. Yes, it is a trade-off once again, but it is what it is. Maybe giving Nightmare 2 crows could actually increase his map control ability by a lot, right? And instead of bringing teleport, actually bring blink on him. But that might make him too strong, but it is a potential worthy buff for Nightmare. What do we have next? Next is you do have poaching, which is 10% movement speed boost where you're not chasing anyone. You can stack that up by looking down on the ground while you're chasing anyone with footprints on the ground, so it doesn't count as being chasing anyone because you're looking at the ground. And you can bring Hunter's Instincts with it too, which is a 2.5/3% movement speed boost when you're not chasing a survivor. So in total, you have 13% movement speed boost when you're not chasing after anyone. In a sense, that seems really good, but also in another sense, if you want to use your skill 1, which locks a target and you can dash towards them, you need to be looking at the survivors for dash. So poaching a Hunter's Instinct will both deactivate when you do that. So most of the times what Nightmare mains will do is they'll actually look down and chase up towards a survivor before they actually start locking them in position or in their view sight. But here's another thing, his dashes early game are so unreliable to the point that why bother having a dash? Yes, it's like a homing missile, but it's like an and but worse, because A, you can't auto lock immediately. B, you can't dash freely. C, when you dash, you cannot curve dash like an. D, when survivors are behind the pallet, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna try dashing in towards it? Because no, it won't work, because what's gonna happen is that they're gonna be hiding behind the pallet and you're gonna dash in the pallet and getting pallet stunned. Now, I have seen sometimes where the dash actually go through the pallet, but that is also pretty unreliable. It is not always certain that you can do dash, which is a small bit of an issue for me as well. And there are definitely often times where, you know, it's where you know, it kind of gets really annoying when survivor, like what happens, survivor can tie cut you and basically do anything against you. You can open area kite Nightmare 2 early game because he's only 1 dash. If he's 2 dashes, you're pretty much screwed, but if he's 1 dash, you're overall fine. What are you worried about? Alright, and if you're a high movement type character too, the moment they get close to you, just hook away, just ball away, just outpad away. What are they gonna do, catch up to you? Right, so there's also that too for early game, and a lot of his issues really is just early game, very similar to Wu, but less leeway compared to Wu Chan. Right, so like for Nightmare, it's kind of like saying, hey, I do have so many things end game that it's absolutely brilliant, but if I don't get anything early game, I'm absolutely cooked. Which is why I do bring incidents on Nightmare a lot of the time. Some people say, hey, why don't you bring trump card? I say, look, I'm most likely going to be needing that first hit on blink and then another immediate teleportation on towards the survivors when the crows are on them, and when I open my first presence just to get the immediate register hit. That's most likely what's always going to happen in height here, unless they give you a free hit, which is really pretty much rare, but aside from that, no. But what are the good things about Nightmare that is good about him? It's his late game, really. He does have really high controllability, map controllability, and a little bit of Cypher machine control once again when you put a crow on the Cypher, and really high chase because you have 2 dashes, so you can catch up towards the survivor really fast. But once again, the dash gets countered by Tai Kai. Now, instead of being able to kite a Nightmare in open area and tight areas, you're only allowed to kite them in tight areas, in tight containments. Right, so then like for Nightmare, it's kind of like, oh well, I guess it is what it is now, hey. You know, so like, it's not too bad for survivors. And if the survivor wants to, they can start pallet spamming just to buy even more time and pulling distance with window speed boosters away. Like, Nightmare is kind of like saying, I put a pallet down, I vault over my window, and then I go towards the next pallet, put it down, wait until cooldown is ready, and repeat, and rinse and repeat the cycle. That's Nightmare for me. So like for me, he is still pretty unreliable, especially if you're allowed to do curved dashes. I will be so happy, because now you can actually dash past the pallet, and survivor can't camp it, you know. But he can't, so it's kind of a oofus doofus moment there, in a nutshell. But yeah, Nightmare for me will be unreliable. Then we will have Clerk. Clerk will be pretty... I'll put Clerk on warp viable for now. And with a couple of good reasons as well. I probably would put Clerk on versatile, wouldn't I? I'm currently heavy thinking, right? So where will we put Clerk on? Well, does Clerk have map control? Clerk can work with warp. Clerk, last time I put her on versatile as well, but since we introduced the warp viable, I think Clerk might be... I think Clerk might be higher. Clerk might be higher, maybe here on the tier list. Now in tourney she might be lower because there's harassers and 4-man teams, but in rank definitely versatile around that range. Now why do we say Clerk is good? Why do we say Clerk is warp viable? Now once again, thanks to watching IVA and commentating IVA, I've learned that Clerk Warp is a thing. And of course for IVT as well, Clerk Warp is a thing. And what does Clerk Warp do, and what is good about Clerk with Warp? It's the fact that you're able to catch up towards the survivor immediately when they pull their hooks or their elbow pads, that you can catch up immediately and you can put a scroll on them. Not only does it slow down their vaulting animation, it also forces them to not put down pallets or vault over windows. Well, maybe they can vault over windows, but putting down pallets is an issue. So it kind of does act like a blink in a sense, but you just get it down a tiny bit slower. But you know, warp cooldown is like 50 seconds, so that's fine. That's honestly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. 50 seconds is still okay. It's still faster than a blink cooldown, which is 60 seconds initially, right? And like, what is Clerk really? Why is Clerk really good in this meta? It's because it is high movement type character meta. It's because it is containment meta, which means Clerk with 4.73 movement speed per second, she's above average compared to normal hunters, 4.64 meters per second. Right, and not only that, because of introduction of warp, she can even get a faster down without blink. And even if you do go against high chase type survivors, warp helps you out so much. It's absolutely beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful as well, just to catch up towards the survivor and try and guarantee that 60-second down. Most of the time survivors will try pull distance away from you, and then in that case you can't even catch up with blink, so then like their containment might be 90 seconds in this case scenario instead of 60 seconds. And of course with the introduction warp, you can almost always guarantee a 60-second down if you play Clerk correctly, which I would say it isn't too hard. Clerk isn't as hard as, let's say, Mad Eyes. She isn't as hard as, let's say, Dreamwitch. She isn't as hard as, let's say, a lot of the other hunters really. Right now, yes, you might have to be a little bit fast on the hands with putting the scroll on the survivors, but aside from that, she is okay enough to learn. On difficulty, I'll put her on a 1.5 to 2 out of 3. She's not too hard compared to, like, you know, Dreamwitch, compared to Wheel, compared to like Mad Eyes, and so on and so forth, you know. So like for Clerk, she is pretty good. Now, because her chase is pretty mediocre / bad, warp does help it out quite a lot, but her cipher control is absolutely on the extreme point, to the fact that if you manage to get one survivor eliminated and there's 3 survivors left, you can always almost guarantee a tie game, but there are always higher chances of win game, because once you get a survivor down and then there's one last cipher machine and one has to come rescue, you can just permanently lock the cipher machine so they can't decode it anymore. So, you know, like with Clerk, she does have a lot of capability too. She can, like, you know, record herself breaking pallets, vaulting windows to prevent the survivors from, like, you know, vaulting over windows, and to break pallets without using any animation. She can lock survivor cipher machine when she has her first presence, when the survivor places an item or vaults over something or interacts with something, she locks it so they can't use it again. And in exchange for that, she can pull up pallets, she can use survivors window vault scrolls, etc, etc. And I think the big plus is that harasser meta is no more in current day meta. In season 32 meta, it's no more, and I'm quite sure for season 33 it is no more as well. So she's not a bad character really to pick up against in this current day meta as well, against meta survivors too. So like for Clerk, she's very versatile in that case scenario as well. And even if there is harassers, prospector and enchantress, it shouldn't be too much of an issue really in my case scenario, especially when you bring warp as well against prospector. Prospector stuns you, the survivor you chase gets away, just warp towards them and you'll be fine. Really, yeah, that's kind of another good thing about warp too. But yeah, that's that for Clerk. Next will be Nightwatch. Nightwatch will also be a part of Versatile. We're going to put him on the highest end of it all. Now, yes, GameKeeper has been used more in tourneys, but Nightwatch is more fun to use in rank and more easy to learn as well, which is why he ranks on top. Aside from being very easy to use and very easy to learn, I think it's just it's also very beginner friendly, which is what I do like the most about Nightwatch. He's strong and very beginner friendly, and warp helps him out quite a lot as well. Nightwatch suffers Nightwatch 3, 2, 1. Nightwatch suffers the same issues as Wax Artist, as Clerk, as Anne, as Bonbon, and as, you know, many other characters that has to catch up towards the survivors that doesn't have high movement. Nightwatch early game actually doesn't have high movement, because Nightwatch's Tempest has been nerfed, but the range has been nerfed quite a lot. So then like survivors are able to get out of range pretty easily, in a sense. If they just start pulling distance a little bit early, they can get out of range pretty easily. For Nightwatch himself, finding survivors are going to be pretty hard, especially when you don't have dashes and instead movement speed boost. You don't want to consume all those movement speed boosts just to catch up towards survivors. You want to use those to vault over pallets, vault over windows to catch up towards them faster. In that case scenario, it's better to catch up with the movement speed boost and then Tempest to soldier them and to guarantee a hit, or you need to be able to save them to vault over windows and pallet when they decide to campish. Right, and like for Nightwatch, yes, warp makes him very good. A lot of people run him with instant detention. So what happens here is you have maximum stacks of wins. You warp towards the survivor, use your double stacks or triple stacks, guarantee a hit, open max presence, and then when you have Typhoon, you can immediately pull the survivor back, or even dash towards them and guarantee another immediate hit pretty fast. Which is what I really like about Nightwatch in that case scenario too. Now sometimes Nightwatch means run blink, but if you do run blink, you have to worry about, oh, can I catch up towards the survivor fast enough? In most cases, yes. In other cases, no. This is high movement this is high movement meta for survivors. So for Nightwatch, I would say it depends on the scenario you're in, but like 70 times out of 30 times, 7 out of 3 times, it's a no. Survivors are going to be able to pull pretty much a long distance away from you, especially if they know that it was a Nightwatch. So there is that. Nightwatch is high on the end as well because he's easy to learn, he's easy to use. The slow wind pull back helps Nightwatch out a lot if he stacks it with his movement speed wind, in which it almost always guarantees a hit if he uses it as a combo. His fast wind allows his fast wind allows him to pull survivors back, in which you can cancel vault animations, you can cancel rescue animations, and you can sometimes stuff rescues with it as well. In that case scenario, he has basically 1% of chair camp capability. Okay, let's say 10% of chair camp capabilities. Let's just say that very, 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 very low end on that spectrum. And you know, for Nightwatch 2, what I would really like to say is like, per each presence he opens, he gains more value. He's a very snowbally character as well, in which when you roll a snowball down the hill, it gets bigger. As the game progresses and as more presence Nightwatch gets, he gets stronger, which is what we like, which is what is the best thing about meta hunters. It's their ability to become stronger as the game goes by. Right. So then, like in that case scenario, since when Nightwatch opens max presence, he gets 4 stacks of energy instead of 3, and per each wind he uses, he gains 2 stacks. So instead of using 3 winds to get 3 wind stacks, you now only need to use 2 winds to get 4 wind stacks. So your marginal return is absolutely fantastic, which means he has basically better capabilities mid to end game. And not only dash, a lot of people run instance with him as well. With instance, you can now keep increasing presence until max presence. So that is honestly pretty good for Nightwatch too. So like for Nightwatch, his chase early game is pretty meh. It's pretty below average unless you actually catch up towards survivor and is in range. But from mid to end game onwards, it gets really, really, really good above average. Right, and then like chair camp, it's the same. Map control, you can just say it's because of his chase from meh to average, above average. And he doesn't really have any cipher controls, but that's fine. He's more or less of a high chase type hunter in that case scenario too. Okay, next will be Opera Singer. Opera Singer for this season will be part of Ivy's Madness. Next season might be a little bit more different from what I've seen on playing Opera as well. It might be just a tiny bit more different, but we'll discuss that next season. For this season, Opera Singer will be a part of Ivy's Madness. Once again, very meta type of character. She has chase. She has a little bit of... She has high chase. She has high... So basically, right, her chase goes from above average to extreme pretty fast as the game goes by. She has her own innate self-teleport towards her own remnants. She can basically dash really fast across the map. She can also counter high movement type characters, basically current day meta. And she is basically really good overall. Right, because like even if you want to pallet spam, it's not going to happen against Opera. She'll just bring fast pallet breaking, destroy them all, and immediately get a hit on you and another blink down. For Opera currently, what I would most likely like to highlight her about is her it's her usage in tourney, yes, but how easy it is to go against 4-man teams that aren't well coordinated. For Opera Singer, what I think we all have to realize is the fact that She is really strong. Yes, we all realize that, but it's also pretty easy to actually learn her. It is. I realize it's actually pretty easy to learn Opera as long as you play maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 games. By that time, you will know most of her dash locations as the game progresses. Right? If you just decide to bring Confined Space Detention alongside with Blink, you will almost, let's say, get a guaranteed tie game unless you mess up somewhere really badly. And it's not only that, it's because of the fact that she can dash out, she can dash and then teleport back towards her remnants. It's also the fact that that means she's a better chair cam compared to Nightmare. I would dare to argue she's a better chair cam compared to Nightmare and Woo, in a sense that her Shadow Dance animation with a teleportation back is basically 1 second. Compared to most other people. That's faster than teleport, just to let everyone know. That is way faster than teleport. Just 1 second and you're back. You're like a snap. So like, not only that, I feel like for Opera Singer this season as well, when you reach max presence and as your dash speed increases, when you dash, the speed increases, not the movement speed after you dash increases, the dash speed increases. That means you're basically able to dash faster and to catch up towards survivors even faster now. Now, of course, that has been nerfed for season 33, yes. Maybe she'll go down in the meta. We'll see how it goes next season. But for this season, she is still very, very, very high. She will be rank 1 on the tier list for me. Opera Singer will be rank 1 on the tier list for me in that regards too. She will be the most highly banned character for season 32. Now for season 33, I hope survivors will ban her less because she is pretty much she's been nerfed like 5 times now, I'm quite sure. At least 3 times and max 5 times. So yeah, I don't know what else we can say about Opera, because like we all know how fast she can be. We all know most people bring pallet breaking with her, trump card detention, and we also do know that she's not too hard to learn. Like within 30, 40, 50 games, you'll know most dash spots, because there's only like 7 rank maps, and like if you 7 divided by 50, that means you play 7 games on each rank map. By that point, you probably know most dash places, like most common used dash places, and you're going to be able to catch up towards the survivors really fast as well. And of course, against non-4-man teams, you're definitely always going to get a tie. Against 4-man teams, you're almost always guaranteed to get a tie. So yeah, for Opera, there's really nothing much we can say. Because like, you know, pros wise, we know all her pros. Cons wise, there's not too much. There's really not. I wouldn't even dare to say there's even that one major con. But like for pros, she's way too many pros now, and I guess everyone knows it anyway. So I really won't talk about it. Like she is not too hard to learn. I would dare to argue she isn't too hard to learn. It really is just about getting used to moving your camera and then dashing, which is basically utilizing 2 fingers, one for moving the camera and then the other one for tapping the dash button, and that's it. Yeah, that's honestly it. So yeah, that's that for Opera. Next will be Fool's Gold. Fool's Gold will be niche. Fool's Gold, I would put him on unreliable, but he has a lot of things that make him quite good compared to everyone in unreliable. He isn't anywhere above tie guarantee because his ability is pretty shockingly bad. His hitbox is long. But aside from that, it is still pretty shockingly bad. And I do think another part about Fool's Gold is the fact that his chips are very unreliable, but aside from that, he's pretty much niche. So what is Fool's Gold? Fool's Gold has his hammer, has his axe, in which when he throws it out, if it hits a wall, he can create a breakable wall or a collapsed wall area, in which if the survivors are near it, you are going to be able to get a chip. That's what I would say. You are going to be able to get a chip, right? And if you throw it out, and if it hits the wall or if it hits the ground, you can dash towards it, right? You can attract to it. So then, like, that's kind of like a high movement based skill, very similar to Geisha, but it's only 6 seconds long, and it's very skill dependent in a sense, because you have to be able to aim it properly, and if there's obstacles in front of you, you need to be able to position yourself towards the axe, in facing the axe, and make sure that you don't get hit towards any other obstacle and get cancelled the dash. In a sense, it's a bit more skill dependent compared to Geisha, who can dash through walls. And when he opens his first presence, he is able to throw down a magnetic rock in which it locks an area, creates unbreakable walls, and when Fool's Gold strikes his axe on towards the wall, it creates a parallel fission. I'm quite sure fission is the right word, in which when unbreakable walls happen, the rock will have a 1-second delay before it also occurs in that area too. But most of the times, Fool's Gold will use that rock area in order to guarantee 2 chips immediately on towards the survivor if the breakable walls is near the area already. So like in that case scenario, sometimes Fool's Gold do that during chases as well instead of chair camps. But what is really bad about Fool's Gold is the fact that yes, his chase is really good, but overall his chips are absolutely horrible. His chase is good, yes, but his chase is very straightforward, as in like it's like a one-line chase. You throw it out, you attract to it, that's it. You can't cancel it in between compared to a Naiad. You can kind of control where you throw the axe, but it's not really reliable too, because you need very high proficiency on that compared to Geisha. And not only that, when you throw it out, you need to wait until it lands on the ground before you can dash to it, so the survivors know whether they need to move back or not. When you basically attract to the axe, there's an animation for it. It's relatively fast, yes, but the survivors can't react on time. So like, even with that in mind, Fool's Gold Chase is okay. It's good. Look, I'm not gonna deny Fool's Gold Chase is bad. I'm gonna say it's good, yes, but because his chase is good, that doesn't mean he can dash over pallets. That doesn't mean he can guarantee chips on towards survivors. It's way too hypothetical. It's way too skill dependent, and it's way too survivor dependent too. Not only that, in current high day fast chase type characters, yes, when survivors are in open area, you can dash towards Fools. The Fool's Gold can dash towards them, but then like, in order to counter that, they can hook away, elbow pad away, or just movement speed away. And you might say, hey, but then like, they have to rotate into a tight containment area, right? That's where I basically throw my axe and chip them. In which I say, yeah, you can do that. But like, it's pretty baitable. It is pretty baitable with the chips. The chips are pretty baitable for 2 main reasons. Reason number 1 is the fact that when Fool's Gold takes his axe back, the animation time is pretty long. So the survivors, even if they are in between the pallets, they could get out on time. Right, that's a bit of an issue. So it's very perfect timing dependent. You need to time it very well, and it also depends on whether the survivors are baiting you or not. So here comes another issue there too. And the other issue is, if you're near like 2 pallet areas or 3 pallet areas, you can only lock 1 wall, not 2. It's not connected, right? It's very similar to Opera. Those walls aren't connected. So then like, if you lock 1, there's another one to you. So like, oh well, what can you do? What can you do in that scenario? Nothing much really. Right, so like for Fool's Gold in that case as well, it's pretty meh. But like, when he opens max presence, he does get this ability in which he can hold his axe, and when it reaches max charge, the moment you throw on towards the wall, it's a chip. Yes, that's good, but also at the same time, it's kind of like, you just get countering the open area in that case scenario then. In which you might say, hey, it's okay, get countering the open area. That means I can catch up towards the survivors, right? Yes, but you're gonna waste a lot of time. So like, it's a huge meh situation there for like Fool's Gold, which is why like, it's not that good for him. Like, his chase is basically pretty average. His chair camp is okay. He does have a little bit of chair camp. If he can get chair camp onto his survivors, that's great, but it's still really rare for it to happen. It's not better. It's not good compared to, it's like comparing to Wax Artist, Disciple, Bonbon, Naiad, Reptilian, Axe Boy, Soul Weaver, Clown, Feaster, and Gala. He's on the bottom. He's on the very bottom when it comes to chair camp, because it's very baitable. It is very baitable. If the breakable walls was a little bit bigger, I would say he's probably a little bit on top. But since it's pretty easily dodged, my answer to you will be it depends. And in that scenario, I don't think he's really that good. So Fool's Gold will be a part of niche. Okay, the last one will be Shadow. Shadow will be a part of Ivy's madness. I'm gonna rank her second overall out of all the hunters, and the reason being the fact that Ivy is really good against non-4-man teams. She's really good in rank. Yes, in tourneys we've seen people like tree escaping her or even like tying against her pretty easily, but she is still pretty good. Right, so what does Ivy has? Ivy has her own leech, which is called Yetian, in which it's 2 separate bodies, very similar to Dream Witch. She can latch on towards a survivor using psychic intrusion and immediately teleport on towards them, which in a nutshell, she has teleportation and, you know, movements, high chase capabilities early game. That is pretty good. Ivy also has her first skill called Revelation, in which if the survivor looks at her and she uses a revelation, her scream, they will gain 40 stacks of fear. And when survivor has 100 stacks of fear, they will get stunned And during this stun animation, it's called Fear, in which the survivor will move towards where Ivy is. So what does this mean? If the survivor gets stunned over a window and they run towards Ivy because they get feared, Ivy can hit them over the window. That is pretty good, isn't it? And if Ivy brings fast pallet breaking, even if they vaulted over the pallet, right, and they get stunned immediately, then what happens is that you're going to be able to fast break and then get a hit on them immediately registered. So that's another very, 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 very good thing about Ivy. About Ivy. Yeah. Sorry, my brain just died. And when she opens first presence, if I am not wrong, her leech cooldown depletes from 43 seconds to 38 seconds. So that's overall okay, but her max presence is very noteworthy, in which when you teleport on towards the survivor within the Ostrakon range, her artifact, they gain an extra 40 stacks. So like in most cases, survivors, when they get a leech, they'll get 20 stacks. Sometimes they'll get 19 stacks. And I will say that's because of green pin. Right? For us EU gang, we don't have green pin, so like we're absolutely screwed. But for Americans, they're absolutely in heaven. Nothing we can do about it. But like in that case scenario, you can immediately get corruption transforms 40 stacks to 20 stacks as well, another 40 stacks from ETN, and that guarantees a hit. Now the cooldown time of that is 43 seconds if I'm not wrong, or 45 seconds. But it is still pretty good. Like, it's longer compared to Wheel, which is 30 seconds with the, you know, spikes, with the ridiculous spikes. But I guess it does get countered by Flywheel, so fair enough. Fair enough. Now with Ivy as well, it's because of the fact that she works really well. She has high map control. She has average chase. Let's say she can teleport towards the survivor, but aside from that, she can't do much. So she has average chase, and which is basically her target changeability is really high, and she has cipher control, and she has a little bit of map control too. And sorry, not map control, cipher chair camp too, in which you need to rescue early against Ivy. When you come in towards the chair, you need to rescue. That's basically the whole gist of Ivy, because then like you don't want to get 100 stack on 100 fear stacks and then like, you know, YOLO holo bolo getting failed rescue. You don't want that to happen. So like there's another issue there as well. And most of the times Hunter will leech on towards you when you're near the chair, so it forces you to gain stacks, and then it'll probably scream at you, which gets you like 40 stacks. And then it's kind of just like YOLO holo, your stacks are getting up now. Are you going to rescue or not? Because if you rescue late, then you're going to fail rescue. If you rescue early, but you have like 70-80 stacks and you're still within Ostrakon range, they will just double hit you, and then down you, and then like immediately change the leech towards the survivor that was on chair, catch up towards them immediately, get 100% stack very fast because they double hit you, so they're basically max presence now, and it's a double down scenario, which is what's really good about Shadow as well. So like, what does Shadow have? Shadow has really good chair camp, forces double down. Shadow has average chase, but then she has high target changeability. Shadow has map control, in which she can lock. She can't really lock cipher machines, but she can disturb it. So like every 10 seconds, there's like a 2.5 second disturbance. And, you know, I do think as well, like it's with the fact that Ivy is really good against no calm survivors, which is basically rank. So like Ivy is really high on the tier list too. There's like a lot of good things about her as well, and like she counters survivors that looks back, like Seer, like Batter, like Prospector, like Painter. Like a lot of those characters get really hard countered by Ivy as well. So like it's not too much of a bad thing. It's not too much of a bad thing. And like for Ivy as well, if you want to, you can get 60 stacks on towards the survivor, blink on towards the survivor, and then immediately use your Yeetian to get a 100% stack and get the down. That's also another way to utilize Ivy. Just in case you can't get a hit early game, you can at least immediately force the backup as soon as you can, right? So there is also that too. But overall, that would be the end of Season 32's Hunter tier list. This is the overall tier list. If you have any different opinions, feel free to comment it down below. Maybe I'll change my opinion for next season, but I already have a gist of some of these Hunters tier list for next season. Now, I would say that I am a little bit sketchy for tie guarantee. Like, I'm a bit of a mess situation now for tie guarantee, because I know either Reptilian was high and Naiad was a little bit higher last season, or season 30 when I placed them. But you know, if you have any differences, please just tell me, and that will be the end of season 2 Hunter tier list. Of course, once again, hopefully you enjoyed and hopefully you learned something new, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye for now.